You are now listening to Accidental Bratva Daddy by Bella King. Produced and published by After Midnight LLC. Copyright 2024 After Midnight LLC. Enjoy.
Chapter 1. Natalia. The champagne fizzes on my tongue as I take another sip, the bubbles a stark contrast to the heavy weight settling in my stomach. All around me, Moscow's elite mingle and laugh, riding the high of another successful Orlova couture fashion show. My latest ready-to-wear designs dazzled on the runway, drawing gasps and applause from even the most jaded critics. By all accounts, this after-party should be a moment of triumph. So why do I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down into a deep abyss from which there will be no escape? I scan the opulent hotel ballroom, taking in the glittering chandeliers and flowing champagne. My gaze lands on my father, Igor Orlov, his salt and pepper hair easy to spot as he works the room with practiced charm. Even from here, I can see the slight strain around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders that betrays his easy smile. The unease in my gut grows. Something's off tonight. I can feel it. Did you hear? A hushed voice from nearby catches my attention. The Orlovs have some nerve showing up with all the rumors swirling about their family. I freeze, my glass halfway to my lips. What rumors? I normally don't ask, but in this case, another voice asks, laden with poorly concealed eagerness for gossip. The first voice drops even lower, but in the sudden lull of conversation around me, the words cut like a knife. Igor Orlov got caught meeting with Kirill Baranov, by his own brother's assistant, no less. Mafia ties, they say. The crystal stem of my glass creaks ominously as my grip tightens. These whispers, these accusations, they're nothing new. For years, they've stalked our family's footsteps, casting a shadow over everything we've worked for. But to hear them here, tonight, after everything I've worked for. White-hot anger bubbles up inside me, threatening to spill over. Before I can stop myself, I'm striding towards the gossiping pair, my emerald green gown swishing around my legs. "Excuse me," I say, my voice dripping with icy politeness. The two women, vaguely familiar faces from countless society events, turn, their eyes widening as they recognize me. I couldn't help but overhear your fascinating conversation. My family seemed to be the topic of concern. The taller of the two, a bottle blonde in a dress at least a size too small, has the decency to look embarrassed. "Natalia, we didn't mean—" "Oh, I'm sure you didn't." I cut her off, my smile sharp enough to draw blood. After all, what could be more entertaining at a celebration of art and fashion than rehashing baseless rumors? Tell me, do either of you actually know my father? Or my uncle? Or are you simply parroting whatever scraps of gossip you can scavenge to make yourselves feel important? They gawk at me, clearly unused to being called out so directly. The shorter one, a mousy thing in an unremarkable black dress, stammers out an apology. But I'm already turning away, my piece said. "Next time," I toss over my shoulder, "try having an original thought. It's far more becoming, and the two of you need all the help you can get." As I make my way back to the bar, adrenaline courses through my veins. I shouldn't have done that. Making a scene, drawing attention, it's exactly what we've been trying to avoid. But I'm so tired of the whispers, the sidelong glances, the way people who once fawned over us now treat us like we're contagious. I know my outburst isn't going to change anything, but it feels good to get it off my chest. The longer I let people talk about my family within earshot, the bolder they become. Maybe this will take some of the volume out of their words, at least. Quite the show. A deep, richly accented voice says from beside me. Though I have to say, I preferred the one on the runway. I turn, a biting retort on the tip of my tongue, only to have the words die in my throat. The man standing next to me is, without exaggeration, the most devastatingly handsome person I've ever laid eyes on. Tall and broad-shouldered, he cuts an imposing figure in a bespoke suit that probably costs more than most people's cars. His dark hair is artfully tousled, as if he's just run his hands through it, and a hint of stubble graces his strong jawline. But it's his eyes that truly capture me, a piercing, icy blue that seems to see right through me. Paired with his impressive, muscular build, I would say that he both belongs on the runway, and he should stay far away from it. He seems too good for high fashion, if that makes any sense at all. I realize I'm staring and quickly gather myself. I'm glad you enjoyed the show, I say, aiming for professional detachment. Though I don't believe we've been introduced, mister. His lips quirk into a half smile that does dangerous things to my insides. Volkov, he supplies. Luka Volkov, but please call me Luka. The name tickles something in the back of my mind, but I can't quite place it. I offer my hand. Natalia Orlova. Instead of shaking it, Luka brings my hand to his lips, brushing a kiss across my knuckles. The gesture is old-fashioned, almost courtly, but there's nothing chivalrous about the heat that flares in his eyes. Oh, I know exactly who you are, Miss Orlova. A shiver runs down my spine, equal parts excitement and trepidation. There's something dangerous about this man, a coiled intensity that sets every nerve ending on high alert. And yet, I find myself drawn to him like a moth to a flame. You handled those harpies beautifully, Luka continues, nodding towards where I'd confronted the gossiping women. Though I have to wonder if it was worth the energy. I bristle slightly at his presumption. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, for your family. Ah, yes, family. His tone is neutral, but something flickers in his eyes, an emotion I can't quite name. A noble sentiment, but in my experience, engaging with rumors only gives them more power. Is that your sage advice? To just ignore it when people slander your loved ones? Luka chuckles, the sound low and rich. Not at all. I'm simply suggesting there might be more effective ways of dealing with the kind of problems your family is having. There's a weight to his words that makes me wonder exactly what kind of effective ways he's hinting at. I narrow my eyes, studying him more closely. And what would you know about my family's problems, Mr. Volkov? His smile doesn't falter, but something dangerous flashes in his bright eyes. More than you might think, Miss Orlova. Moscow is a small world after all. Before I can press further, a familiar voice cuts through the crowd. Natalia, there you are. I turn to see my younger sister, Alina, weaving through the sea of glittering dresses and dark suits. She's a vision in powder blue, her chestnut curls bouncing as she hurries over. I'm relieved to see her, though a strange sort of irritation goes through me that she's interrupting my conversation with this delightful new stranger. Sorry to interrupt, Alina says, flashing a quick, curious glance at Luka. But I wanted to remind you about our flight tomorrow. To Isla Miramar? I resist the urge to groan. With everything going on, I'd almost forgotten about our impending family vacation. A week on a tropical island sounds heavenly in theory, but the reality of being cooped up with our entire extended family, including Uncle Victor, is far less appealing. Right, of course, I say, plastering on a smile. How could I forget? We're meeting at the airport at 9 a.m. sharp, Alina supplies. Don't be late, or Mother will have both our heads. I nod, already dreading the early wake-up call. As Alina turns to go, a thought strikes me. Wait, is Uncle Victor here tonight? I haven't seen him. Alina rolls her eyes good-naturedly. You know how he is. Never shows up for anything the day before traveling. Says it's bad luck or something. With a little wave, she disappears back into the crowd, leaving me alone once more with the enigmatic Luka Volkov. When I turn back to him, I find his gaze fixed on me with an intensity that makes my breath catch in my throat. It's not just the stress of the event. He has some kind of power over me that I've decided I don't like at all. No man should be able to make it hard for me to breathe, especially not one who seems entirely too confident in his ability to do so. Sounds like quite the family gathering, Luka says, his tone light but his eyes sharp. Isla Miramar, was it? I've heard it's lovely this time of year. Oh? I arch an eyebrow. a hint of challenge in my voice to cover up the tension that sits alongside it. "And where are you vacationing, Mr. Volkov?" His smile widens, revealing a hint of perfectly straight white teeth. "As it happens, I had a meeting canceled tonight. We were meant to meet at my hotel bar, and now my evening is free. What a fortunate coincidence." My heart rate kicks up a notch. Is he flirting? The logical part of my brain screams that this is a bad idea. I know nothing about this man beyond his name and the fact that he oozes danger from every pore. But there's something magnetic about him, a pull I can't seem to resist. "And what hotel are you staying at tonight?" I ask, surprised by my own boldness. I hate him for how he makes me feel, but I'm drawn to him like the shimmering red promise of death written on the underside of a black widow spider. "The Grand Resort," Luca replies. "I've heard good things, especially about the bar." I can't help the smirk that tugs at my lips. "Well, then I'm afraid you've been misinformed. The bar at the Executive Lodge is far better. Much more exclusive." Luca leans in slightly, his voice dropping to a low rumble that sends shivers down my spine. "Is that so? Perhaps you'd care to show me what I'm missing out on?" The invitation hangs in the air between us, loaded with possibility. I know I should say no. I have a family vacation to prepare for, a business to run, a reputation to maintain. Getting involved with a mysterious stranger is the last thing I need right now. And yet, "You know what?" I say, meeting his gaze steadily. "I think I would. What do you say we get out of here?" Luca's eyes darken with approval and something that looks a lot like hunger. "Lead the way, Miss Orlova." As we make our way towards the exit, I can feel the weight of eyes on us. No doubt this will set tongues wagging even more than my earlier outburst. But for once, I find I don't care. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Just as we reach the door, a commotion erupts from across the room. I turn to see my father, his face ashen, engaged in a heated conversation with a man I don't recognize. Their voices are too low to make out the words, but the tension is palpable even from here. I hesitate, torn between investigating and following Luca out into the night. As if sensing my indecision, Luca places a hand on the small of my back, his touch electric even through the fabric of my dress. "Come," he murmurs, his breath hot against my ear. "Whatever's happening, I promise you'll want to be far away when it all goes down." His words send a chill down my spine. What does he know? But before I can ask, he's guiding me out the door and into the warm Moscow night. As we step into a waiting car, sleek and black with tinted windows, I can't shake the feeling that I'm making a terrible mistake. And yet, as Luca's hand finds mine in the darkness, I realize I don't care. Whatever consequences await, they're a problem for tomorrow's Natalia. Tonight, I'm going to lose myself in the arms of this dangerously appealing stranger and worry about the fallout in the morning. If only I knew just how high a price I'd pay for this one night of reckless abandon.
Chapter 2. Luca. The elevator ascends smoothly, each floor bringing me closer to Natalia's presidential suite. My heart rate quickens, a sensation I'm entirely unaccustomed to. I'm Luka Volkov, feared leader of the Volkov Syndicate. I don't get nervous over women. And yet, as the doors slide open with a soft chime, I find myself smoothing down my already immaculate suit. No woman has ever made me feel this way, as though she's consuming my every waking thought in the moments between seeing her. Natalia answers my knock almost immediately, as if she's been waiting just on the other side of the door. The sight of her steals my breath away. She's changed out of her gown into a silk robe that clings to her curves, her auburn hair tumbling freely around her shoulders. Without the mask of makeup and high fashion, she looks softer, more vulnerable. It stirs something protective in me, a feeling I quickly try to squash. The only person I need to watch out for is myself. The world gets colder every year, and my circle grows smaller. Even a little ray of sunshine like Natalia isn't enough to warm the ground I tread on. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't show," Natalia says, a teasing lilt to her voice as she steps back to let me in. I smirk, falling easily into our flirtatious banter. And miss the chance to see the infamous Natalia Orlova in her natural habitat? Never. Her eyes narrow playfully. Infamous, am I? Oh, absolutely, I say, following her into the opulent living area. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer a breathtaking view of Moscow's glittering skyline. Your designs are the talk of the town. And that little display at the party? I'd say that cements your status as the most interesting woman in this city. A faint blush colors her cheeks, but she lifts her chin defiantly. Those women had it coming. I won't apologize for standing up for my family. There it is again, that fierce loyalty, that spark of fire that drew me to her in the first place. It's intoxicating and dangerous. I need to remember why I'm really here. I wouldn't expect you to, I say, watching as she moves gracefully towards the minibar. Family is everything after all. They come first. Always. Natalia glances over her shoulder, her green eyes searching my face. You say that like you speak from experience. I shrug, careful to keep my expression neutral. Let's just say I understand the importance of protecting what's yours. She hums thoughtfully, turning back to the array of crystal decanters. Drink? Please. I settle onto the plush sofa, admiring the way Natalia moves with easy confidence in this luxurious space. She belongs here, among the finer things in life. A traitorous voice in my head whispers that she'd fit just as well in my world, ruling by my side, draped in jewels and power. A queen for all to see on my arm, loyal and fierce and brave. I shake off the thought. Focus, Volkov. You have a job to do. Natalia returns with 2 glasses of amber liquid. As she hands me mine, our fingers brush. The contact sends a jolt of electricity through me, and judging by the way Natalia's breath catches, she feels it too. So, Mr. Volkov, she says, settling beside me on the couch. Close, but not quite touching. The space between us fairly crackles with tension. What brings a man like you to a fashion show after-party? I take a sip of my drink. It's an excellent whiskey, smooth and rich. Business, primarily, I say as I savor the taste. Though I have to say, the company has been an unexpected pleasure. Natalia's lips curve into a coy smile. Just unexpected, not delightful, captivating, life-changing. I can't help but chuckle at her playful banter. Fishing for compliments, Miss Orlova? Maybe, she admits with a grin. Is it working? Our eyes lock, and for a moment I forget how to breathe. This close, I can see flecks of gold in her emerald irises, smell the intoxicating blend of her perfume and something uniquely her. It would be so easy to lean in, to close that last bit of distance between us. But no, I can't afford distractions, no matter how tempting. I clear my throat, forcing myself to lean back slightly. You know, I don't think anyone's ever accused me of being delightful before. Natalia laughs, the sound bright and genuine. No, I find that hard to believe. You strike me as a man of many hidden depths, Luca. If only she knew. What about you? I ask, steering the conversation away from dangerous territory. Successful fashion designer, darling of Moscow's elite. Is your life everything you dreamed it would be? Something flickers in Natalia's eyes, a hint of shadow beneath the sparkle. It has its moments, she says carefully. But sometimes I wonder if it's worth the cost. The rumors? I probe gently. I heard a few. You shouldn't let them get to you. I try not to, but... Natalia looks off into the distance, taking a long sip of her drink. Don't get me wrong, I love what I do. Creating beautiful art in the form of clothes, making women feel powerful and confident. It's my passion. But the politics of it all, the constant scrutiny... She trails off, shaking her head. Sometimes I feel like the whole world is breathing down my neck. It must be difficult, I say, surprising myself with how much I mean it. Living under that kind of pressure. She gives me a wry smile. says the man in the multi-thousand-dollar suit. I'm sure you know nothing about pressure. If only she knew. But I return her smile, inclining my head in acknowledgement. Touché. Though I assure you, my world comes with its own unique set of challenges. Oh? Natalia leans in, her eyes sparkling with interest. Do tell, Mr. Mysterious Businessman. What deep, dark secrets are you hiding? For a split second, I consider telling her everything, laying bare the truth of who I am, what I do, the weight of the empire I've built, the blood on my hands. But the moment passes, and I school my features into a playful smirk. If I told you, I'd have to kill you, I tease, though there's more truth to the words than she could possibly know. Natalia rolls her eyes, but her smile remains. Always so dramatic. Fine, keep your secrets. I'll just have to use my imagination. A dangerous proposition, I murmur, my voice dropping low. You have no idea what kind of man I might be. The air between us thickens, and I can feel the electricity on my skin. Natalia's gaze drops to my lips, then back up to meet my eyes. Maybe I like a little danger, she whispers. Maybe I've been waiting for something mysterious and unexpected in my life. That's all it takes to shatter my resolve. The following scene is too spicy to be included in this version. You can find the unedited version on bellakingbooks.com or by following the link in the video description. Your book will now continue.
Chapter 3. Natalia. The first rays of sunlight filter through the gauzy curtains, painting the hotel room in a soft golden glow. I stir, my hand reaching out instinctively, seeking the warmth of Luca's body. But my fingers find only cool, empty sheets. My eyes snap open, fully awake now. The space beside me is vacant, the pillow undisturbed. It's as if he was never here at all. Luca, I call out, my voice rough with sleep. Silence answers me. I sit up, clutching the sheet to my chest as I scan the room. His clothes are gone. The only evidence of our night together, the rumpled bedding and the lingering scent of his cologne on the pillow. No note, no text, nothing. A knot forms in my stomach, equal parts disappointment and irritation. I shouldn't be surprised. This is what powerful men do, isn't it? Take what they want and disappear before the sun rises, but some foolish romantic part of me had hoped. I shake my head, banishing the thought. It was just one night, I remind myself sternly. A moment of reckless abandon before returning to the real world. Nothing more. Still, as I shower and dress for the day, I can't shake the feeling of unfinished business. The ghost of Luca's touch lingers on my skin, and when I close my eyes, I can still see the intensity in his gaze as he moved above me. Get it together, Natalia, I muttered to my reflection as I apply a light layer of makeup. You have a family vacation to focus on. I finish packing quickly, double-checking that I have everything I need for a week on Isla Miramar. As I zip up my suitcase, my phone buzzes with a text from Alina. Where are you? We're waiting in the lobby. Dad's getting antsy. I grimace, glancing at the time. I hadn't realized how late it was getting. On my way, I type back. Sorry for the delay. With one last look around the room to make sure I haven't forgotten anything, I head out. As the door clicks shut behind me, I force thoughts of Luca to the back of my mind. It's time to focus on family. The elevator ride to the lobby feels interminable. When the doors finally open, I'm greeted by the sight of my family huddled together near the checkout desk. My father paces back and forth, checking his watch every few seconds while my mother tries to calm him down. There you are, Alina exclaims as I approach. We were about to send a search party. Sorry, I say, flashing an apologetic smile. I overslept. My father's eyebrows shoot up. Overslept? That's not like you, Natalia. I shrug, hoping my face doesn't betray the memories of last night that flash through my mind. Late night working on designs. I lie smoothly. Lost track of time. You know how it is. He seems to accept this, nodding briskly. Well, we'd better get moving. We don't want to miss our flight. As we make our way to the waiting car, I can't help but notice the tension radiating off my father. His jaw is clenched, his movements stiff and jerky. It's so unlike his usual easy demeanor that I find myself watching him closely as we drive to the airport. I wonder if someone said something to him last night, or if he ended up overhearing the gossip going around. I thought him to be impervious to it, but now I'm beginning to have doubts. The usually cool, plush leather seat feels sticky and uncomfortable beneath me, and I have to peel myself off of it when we arrive at the airport. The flight to Isla Miramar is uneventful, but I can't shake the growing sense of unease that settles over me as we near our destination. My father is oddly quiet, his usual easy charm replaced by a tense silence. Even Alina seems subdued, her cheerful chatter noticeably absent. "Is everything okay?" I whisper to her as we begin our descent. Alina glances at our parents before leaning in close. "I'm not sure," she replies. "Dad's been acting weird ever since he got off the phone with Uncle Victor this morning. Something about a change of plans." I frown, my unease deepening. What kind of change? But before Alina can answer, the captain's voice crackles over the intercom, announcing our final approach. The conversation is put on hold as we prepare for landing. As we disembark and make our way through the small island airport, the tension only grows. Uncle Victor is waiting for us at baggage claim, his broad smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Welcome to paradise," he booms, pulling my father into a bear hug. I don't miss the way my father stiffens at the contact, or the fleeting look of something that passes between them. "Victor," my father says, his voice carefully neutral. "I trust your flight was smooth?" Uncle Victor waves a hand dismissively. "Oh, you know how it is. Private jets make everything easier." He winks at Alina and me. "You girls should try it sometime." I force a smile, but something about Uncle Victor's jovial manner feels off. It's too bright, too forced, like he's overcompensating for something. As we load our luggage into the waiting cars, Uncle Victor clears his throat. Igor, there's been a small change of plans. We've switched hotels." My father's head snaps up, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, switched hotels? We've had these reservations for months." Uncle Victor shrugs, the picture of nonchalance. I know, but an opportunity came up at the last minute. A friend of mine offered us his private villa. Much more secluded, better security. You understand." The muscle in my father's jaw ticks, a sure sign he's angry. "Victor, the whole point of staying at the resort was to keep everyone together. That's why I booked it in the first place." "Oh, come now, brother," Uncle Victor says, clapping my father on the shoulder. "No need to get worked up. Tell you what, why don't you take the presidential suite? It's grand, plenty of room for all of you. Consider it my treat." For a moment, I think my father might argue. But then he sighs, the fight seeming to drain out of him. "Fine," he says shortly. "Let's just get to the hotel. It's been a long day." As we climb into the cars, I catch Alina's eye. She looks as confused and unsettled as I feel. Something is definitely off between our father and uncle, but I can't put my finger on what. The drive to the resort is beautiful, winding roads offering glimpses of pristine beaches and lush jungle. But I barely notice the scenery, too preoccupied with the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. When we arrive at the hotel, Uncle Victor makes a show of checking us in and escorting us to the presidential suite. It's undeniably impressive. A sprawling space with a large master bedroom, 2 smaller bedrooms, and 3 luxurious bathrooms. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer a breathtaking view of the ocean. "Well, what do you think?" Uncle Victor asks, spreading his arms wide. "Not too shabby, eh?" My mother makes the appropriate noises of appreciation, but I can see the strain around her eyes. She knows something's wrong, too. "It's lovely, Victor," my father says stiffly. "Thank you for your generosity." Uncle Victor grins, but there's something sharp in his eyes. "My pleasure, brother. After all, we didn't need all this extra space anyway. Enjoy your stay. With that, he's gone, leaving us alone in the cavernous suite. For a moment, we all just stand there, the silence thick with unspoken tension. Finally, my father clears his throat. Well, let's get settled in, shall we? It's been a long day. We disperse to our respective rooms, but the uneasy feeling follows me. As I unpack, my mind races with possibilities. What's going on between my father and uncle to make them so tense? Why the last-minute change of plans? And why can't I shake the feeling that something terrible is about to happen? There's a coiling heat in my stomach that has nothing to do with waking up alone in a bed that had a man in it last night. I'm halfway through hanging up my dresses when there's a soft knock at my door. Come in, I call out, expecting Alina. To my surprise, it's my mother who enters, her face drawn with worry. Natalia, darling, she says, perching on the edge of my bed. Is everything all right? You seem distracted since we arrived. I pause, considering how much to reveal. I'm fine, Mama, I say finally. Just tired from the trip, I guess. But is everything okay with Papa and Uncle Victor? They seem tense. My mother's smile is strained. Oh, you know how brothers can be. Always some little disagreement or another about something small and petty. I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. But I can see the lie in her eyes, the way her hands twist nervously in her lap. Whatever's going on, it's more serious than she's letting on. Serious enough that I think she wants to talk about it. Mama, I say softly, sitting beside her. What's really happening? You can tell me. I'm not a little girl anymore. She looks at me for a long moment, conflict clear on her face. Then she sighs, her shoulders slumping. I don't know all the details, she admits. But your father, he's been worried about something. Late-night phone calls, hushed conversations, and now this sudden change with Victor. She shakes her head. I just hope he knows what he's doing. I want to press for more information, but something in my mother's expression stops me. She looks tired, worried in a way I've never seen before. So instead, I just take her hand, squeezing it gently. It'll be okay, Mama, I say, trying to infuse my voice with a confidence I don't feel. We're all together. That's what matters, right? She smiles, some of the tension easing from her face. You're right, of course, my wise girl. She pats my cheek affectionately. Get some rest, darling. Things always look brighter in the morning. As she leaves, I can't help but wonder if that's true. Because right now, the future looks anything but bright. The rest of the evening passes in a haze of forced normalcy. We have dinner in the suite, the conversation stilted and awkward. My father barely touches his food, his eyes constantly darting to his phone. Uncle Victor doesn't join us, citing some vague business commitment. By the time night falls, I'm exhausted, more from the emotional strain than physical fatigue. I say goodnight to my family and retreat to my room, hoping that sleep will clear my head. But as I drift off, images of Luca flash through my mind. His intense blue eyes, the feel of his hands on my skin, the way he looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. I fall asleep with his name on my lips, tossing and turning in my cold, lonely sheets. A scream pierces the night, jolting me awake. For a moment, I'm disoriented, the unfamiliar surroundings throwing me off balance. Then I hear it again. My mother's voice, high and terrified. Chapter 4. Natalia. My heart racing, I stumble out of bed, nearly tripping over my own feet in my haste. I burst out of my room just as Alina emerges from hers, her face pale with fear. What's happening? She gasps, but I don't have an answer. We both heard the scream, but that was all. Now, the hallway is drenched in an eerie silence that pools at my feet like black sludge. I feel the weight of it slowing my step, even as my heart beats faster and the panic in my veins pushes me along. We scurry towards our parents' room, the sound of our mother's sobs replacing the silence. I throw open the door, and the sight before me makes my blood run cold. My father lies motionless on the bed, a dark stain spreading across his chest. And standing over him, his face a mask of shock and fury, is Luca. It feels like a dream, but I know it isn't. His features are too sharp, his eyes too vivid for me to ever mistake them for being anything but real. The cold blue contrasts with the crimson blood, and I know Luca is responsible. But why? How did he get here, and what business does he have with my father? Our eyes lock, and for a moment the world seems to stop spinning. I see the recognition dawn in his eyes, followed quickly by something that looks almost like regret. But then his expression hardens, and he barks an order to the men flanking him. They grab me and pull me away from the scene, out to where my mother and sister stand huddled in the hallway. "Let Victor know the Volkov syndicate was here," one of the men says, his voice cold and detached. Luca's eyes never leave mine as he mutters to one of his men. "They didn't see me, did they?" The man shakes his head. "Only her," he says, jerking his chin in my direction. Luca's jaw clenches, a muscle ticking in his cheek. For a split second, I see a flicker of the man I thought I knew. Conflicted, almost pained. But then it's gone, replaced by cold determination. "Take her," he orders. His voice is nothing like the warm, passionate tones I remember from our night together. This is a different man entirely, a stranger wearing Luca's face. Before I can process what's happening, strong hands grab my arms, yanking me away from my family. I hear my mother's anguished cries, see Alina's tear-streaked face as she reaches for me. "Natalia!" Alina screams, lunging forward. But one of Luca's men blocks her path, shoving her back roughly. "No!" I cry out, struggling against my captors. "Luca, please, don't do this." But it's all happening too fast, like a nightmare I can't wake up from. As they drag me from the room, my eyes lock with Luca's one last time. In that moment, I see a storm of emotions warring in those icy blue depths. Regret, anger, determination, and something else I can't quite name. Then the door slams shut, cutting off my family's desperate pleas. As they hustle me down the hallway, my world crumbling around me, one thought rises above the chaos. How could I have been so wrong about him? The men force me into a waiting elevator, their grips bruising on my arms. As we descend, my mind races, trying to make sense of what just happened. My father, dead. Luca, a killer. And me being taken God knows where. "Where are you taking me?" I demand, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to stay calm. One of the men, a burly, scarred behemoth, sneers down at me. "Shut up," he growls. "You'll find out soon enough." The elevator doors open, revealing a dimly lit parking garage. They march me towards a waiting black SUV, its engine already running. As we approach, the back door swings open. "Get in," the scarred man orders, shoving me forward. I stumble, nearly falling, but manage to catch myself on the car door. As I right myself, I catch a glimpse of movement in my peripheral vision. Without thinking, I spin, driving my elbow into the scarred man's solar plexus with all the force I can muster. He grunts, doubling over, and for a split second, I think I might have a chance. But then a hand fists in my hair, yanking my head back painfully. "Nice try, princess," a voice hisses in my ear. It's the other man, the one who'd been silent until now. "But you're not going anywhere." He shoves me into the car, climbing in after me. As the door slams shut and the SUV peels out of the garage, I curl into myself, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. What have I done? How could I have let myself fall for Luca's act? And now, because of my foolishness, my father is dead, and my family is in danger. As the SUV speeds through the night, carrying me away from everything I've ever known, I make a silent vow. I will find a way out of this. I will protect my family. And Luka Volkov will pay for what he's done.
Chapter 5. Luca. The soft glow of multiple screens casts eerie shadows across my office, tucked away in one of my lesser-known hideouts on the outskirts of Moscow. My eyes narrow as I focus on one particular feed, a live view of the basement where Natalia paces like a caged tigress, one delicate wrist bound by a chain, her entire body moving with wrathful anger. I lean back in my leather chair, pinching the bridge of my nose. This whole situation has spiraled so far out of control I can barely keep up. And at the center of it all is Natalia. Beautiful, infuriating Natalia. Since we brought her here 3 days ago, she's been driving me to the brink of madness. The fire I once found so alluring now burns too hot, scorching everything in its path. Her biting remarks and icy glares grate on my nerves, chipping away at my usually ironclad control. Every time I'm in the room with her, I'm torn between competing desires, biting her head off and kissing her breathless. I watch as she makes another circuit of the room, her movements graceful even in captivity. The sway of her hips, the determined set of her jaw. Everything about her calls to something primal within me. She's furious, and rightfully so, since I'm the man who killed her father. A mistake in more ways than one. He wasn't the man I was there to kill, and now I'm reaping the consequences. Natalia's father was the key to navigating the political world, and losing him is a blow, as is making such a brutal mistake and having Natalia witness it. I can't let her go, I say under my breath, knowing the truth of the words even as they leave my mouth. She's seen too much, knows too much, and more than that, the thought of her walking out of my life makes something twist painfully in my chest. Boss? Alexei's voice pulls me from my thoughts. I turn to find my most trusted lieutenant hovering in the doorway, his expression grim. We've got a problem. I gesture for him to continue, bracing myself for more bad news. Victor's gone, Alexei says, his voice tight. Fled the country as soon as he got word of the hit. The words hit me like a physical blow. My mind races, pieces of the puzzle shifting and rearranging themselves. He knew it was coming somehow. That's why Natalia's family was in the suite, so we'd get the wrong man, I mutter, more to myself than Alexei. But why would Victor sacrifice his own brother to save himself? Alexei shakes his head. It doesn't add up, boss. Something bigger is going on here. I nod, my jaw clenching as I process this new information. Victor fleeing throws a wrench in all my carefully laid plans. And now, without Igor Orlov, my access to the political world I've been cultivating is severely limited. My eyes drift back to the surveillance feed, to Natalia's restless pacing. She's a formidable woman in more ways than one. I saw that the night we met, as she stood up to those gossiping women, with all her talent and ambition on display. She's not the kind of woman any man, even a man like me, can keep locked up for long. And yet I find I can't quite let her go. She's like an artifact that will only attract bad luck and people who want to take her from me. Yet she's so beautiful that I can't help but feel possessive. Even though she isn't rightfully mine, my heart still wants to claim her. Or maybe it's my body. Maybe the night we spent together wasn't enough and I need to taste her full lips a dozen more times before I'm over this feeling. What do you want us to do, boss? Alexei asks, pulling me back to the present. I stand, straightening my jacket with a sharp tug. Keep digging. I want to know every move Victor's made in the last 6 months, and get me everything you can on Igor Orlov's dealings. There has to be something we're missing. Alexei nods, already turning to carry out my orders. But I'm not finished. And Alexei? I call after him. He pauses, looking back. Double the guard on Natalia. No one gets in or out without my express permission. Understood? Yes, boss, he says, a flicker of something. Concern, curiosity, passing over his features before he forces his expression back to neutral. As the door closes behind him, I turn back to the screens. Natalia has stopped pacing, now sitting on the edge of the narrow bed with her head in her hands. The sight tugs at something in me, a feeling I can't quite name. Before I can talk myself out of it, I'm heading for the basement. I need answers, and Natalia is the key to unlocking this whole mess. At least that's what I tell myself as I descend the stairs, my footsteps echoing in the concrete stairwell. The truth is much more complex than that, and also as simple as the undeniable fact that I want her. The guard posted outside Natalia's room snaps to attention as I approach. I wave him off with a curt nod, keying in the access code myself. The heavy door swings open with a metallic groan. Natalia's head snaps up at the sound, her eyes widening as she sees me. For a split second, I see a flicker of something that looks like hope in those emerald depths. But it's quickly replaced by a storm of anger and hatred so intense it nearly takes my breath away. She's on her feet in an instant, closing the distance between us with quick, purposeful strides. I brace myself, half expecting her to slap me. But as she reaches me, I see the intent in her eyes. She's not going to slap me. She's going for a full-on attack. My body reacts on instinct, years of training kicking in. I catch her wrist just as she swings, using her momentum to spin her around. In one fluid motion, I have her pinned against the wall, my body pressed firmly against hers to keep her in place. "Let me go," Natalia snarls, struggling against my hold. But I outweigh her by a good 50 pounds, all of it muscle. She's not going anywhere. "Not until you calm down," I say, my voice low and controlled, despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "This is fruitless, and we both know it. So give up before you hurt yourself." She twists in my grip, and the movement causes her to brush against me in a way that sends a jolt of heat straight to my core. From the way Natalia suddenly stills, her breath catching, I know she felt it too. "Why?" she whispers, her voice breaking on the word. "Why did you kill him?" The pain in her voice cuts through me like a knife. For a moment I consider lying, spinning some tale that would make me look less monstrous in her eyes. But something about Natalia demands honesty, even when the truth is ugly. "It was a mistake," I admit, my voice rough. One I wish desperately that I could take back. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. That night was supposed to be different. Our eyes lock, and suddenly I'm transported back to that night in her hotel room. The softness of her skin, the taste of her lips, the way she'd moaned my name as she came undone beneath me. The memory is so vivid, so visceral, that for a moment I forget to breathe. Natalia's eyes darken, her pupils dilating as she holds my gaze. I can feel the rapid rise and fall of her chest against mine, her heart racing in time with my own. The air between us crackles with tension, equal parts desire and barely contained violence. A soft moan escapes her lips, the sound so reminiscent of our previous encounter that it takes every ounce of my self-control not to claim her mouth right then and there. The heat between us simmers, threatening to boil over at any moment. I want to tell her everything, to explain the mistake, to make her understand. But as I look into her eyes, blazing with a mixture of fury and unmistakable desire, I know that words are useless right now. Whatever happens next, it's clear that the dynamic between Natalia and me has shifted irrevocably. And God help me, but I'm not sure I want to stop it.
Chapter 6. Natalia. My heart pounds against my ribcage as I stare into Luca's steel blue eyes. His body presses me against the cold concrete wall, his grip firm but not painful. The heat radiating from him is intoxicating, a stark contrast to the chill of the basement room that's become my prison. "Are you going to behave now?" Luca asks, his voice low and rough. I want to spit in his face, to claw at him until he bleeds. But the memory of his earlier words echoes in my mind. A mistake. My father's death was a mistake. The thought makes me dizzy with a confusing mix of relief and renewed anger. I roll my eyes, forcing nonchalance I don't feel. "I'll behave," I say, my voice steadier than I expected. "If you answer some questions for me." Luca studies me for a long moment, his gaze so intense I feel like he can see right through me. Finally, he nods and releases his hold, taking a step back. The sudden absence of his warmth leaves me feeling oddly bereft. "Ask your questions," he says, crossing his arms over his broad chest. I take a deep breath, trying to organize the chaos in my mind. "You're not just a businessman, are you?" It's not really a question. I know the answer, but I need to hear him say it. "No," Luca replies, his expression unreadable. I'm the leader of the Volkov Syndicate. The words hang in the air between us, heavy with implication. I knew, of course. I'd pieced it together from the fragments of conversation I'd overheard, from the way his men defer to him. But hearing him say it out loud makes it real in a way it wasn't before. A crime syndicate, I clarify, needing to hear the full truth. Luca doesn't flinch. Yes. The confirmation sends a shiver down my spine. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, is the same one who held me so tenderly that night in my hotel room. The same one who made me feel things I'd never felt before. The same one who killed my father. Why? I demand, unable to keep the fury from my voice. Why did you do it? Why did you kill my father? Luca's jaw tightens, a muscle ticking in his cheek. I told you it was a mistake. The hit was meant for your uncle, Victor. But why? I press, taking a step towards him. What could my uncle have possibly done to warrant a death sentence? Luca runs a hand through his hair, a gesture so human it catches me off guard. Your uncle isn't who you think he is, Natalia. He's Kirill Baranov, the head of a rival organization. He's been using your family as a shield for years. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumble back, my legs suddenly weak. Luca reaches out to steady me, but I flinch away from his touch. No, I whisper, shaking my head. That's not possible. Uncle Victor, he's just a businessman. He can't be... I'm sorry, Luca says, and to my surprise, he actually sounds sincere. I know it's a lot to take in, but it's the truth. My mind races, memories flashing before my eyes. All those hushed conversations, the whispered rumors about my family's connections to the underworld. I'd always dismissed them, convinced they were nothing but malicious gossip. But now, my father, I say, my voice barely audible. You said he had ties to your organization. What kind of ties? Luca hesitates, and I can see him weighing how much to reveal. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement, he says finally. Your father provided connections in the political world, and in exchange, I offered protection for your family. Protection from who? I ask, though I think I already know the answer. I can't say more. Luca replies, his expression apologetic but firm. That's as much as I can tell you for now. Anger bubbles up inside me, hot and volatile. Anger at Luca for taking my father's life, even if it was unintentional. Anger at my father for keeping such monumental secrets. Anger at myself for being so blind to the truth for so long. So what happens now? I ask, hating how small and uncertain my voice sounds. Are you going to kill me too? Luca's eyes widen, genuine shock flashing across his face. No, he says vehemently. Never. I told you, Natalia, you're under my protection now. For how long? I challenge. Until I outlive my usefulness? Until I become a liability? Something dark and possessive flashes in Luca's eyes. He takes a step closer, closing the distance between us once more. You will never be a liability to me, he says, his voice low and intense. Do you understand? I should be terrified. This man is dangerous, a killer, a criminal. But instead, I feel a thrill of heat race through me at his words, at the naked want in his gaze. It's wrong, so wrong to feel this attraction to the man responsible for my father's death. But I can't deny the pull between us, the electric current that seems to crackle in the air whenever we're close. An idea begins to form in my mind. Desperate, possibly insane, but potentially our best chance at survival. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what I'm about to do. Marry me, I blurt out. Luca blinks, genuine surprise crossing his face. What? Marry me, I repeat, more firmly this time. It's the perfect solution. You need a connection to the political world, right? Well, I'm an Orlov. I have those connections. And in exchange, you protect my family, my mother, my sister. You keep them safe from Victor and anyone else who might want to harm them. Luca studies me, his brow furrowed in confusion and suspicion. Why would you do this? After everything that's happened? I lift my chin, meeting his gaze steadily. Because I love my family. And I'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe. Even if that means tying myself to someone like you. For a long moment, Luca is silent, his eyes never leaving mine. I can almost see the gears turning in his mind, weighing the pros and cons of my offer. It would make things simpler, he muses, almost to himself. A marriage to an Orlov would solidify my position, give me legitimacy in certain circles. Exactly, I say, seizing on his train of thought. It's a win-win situation. You get the political connections you need, and I get assurance that my family will be protected. Luca takes a step closer, close enough that I can feel the heat radiating from his body. And what about us, Natalia? Are you prepared for what a marriage to me would entail? My breath catches at the intensity in his gaze. Images flash through my mind. Luca's hands on my body, his lips on my skin, the way he'd made me feel that night in the hotel. I push the thoughts away, focusing on the matter at hand. I'm prepared to do whatever is necessary, I say, proud of how steady my voice sounds. A slow smile spreads across Luca's face, equal parts admiration and something darker, more predatory. Very well, he says. I accept your proposal. Relief washes over me, quickly followed by a new wave of anxiety. What if I just agreed to? A lifetime bound to this dangerous, enigmatic man? As if reading my thoughts, Luca reaches out, his hand cupping my cheek. The touch is surprisingly gentle, at odds with the hardness in his eyes. I'll take care of you, Natalia, he murmurs. You and your family will want for nothing. I nod, not trusting myself to speak. Luca's thumb traces the curve of my cheekbone, leaving a trail of fire in its wake. Despite everything, I find myself leaning into his touch, craving more. We'll need to move quickly, Luca says, his voice taking on a businesslike tone even as his hand remains on my face. I'll have my lawyer draw up the necessary paperwork. We'll need to stage a courtship, of course. We can't have people getting suspicious. The sudden shift makes my head spin. Right, I say faintly. Of course. Luca's eyes soften slightly, a hint of concern creeping into his expression. Are you all right? I know this is a lot to take in. I want to laugh at the absurdity of it all. All right? My father is dead. My uncle is apparently a crime lord, and I've just agreed to marry the man responsible for turning my world upside down. But instead, I just nod. I'm fine. I lie. Just processing things. Luca studies me for a moment longer, then seems to come to a decision. Come on, he says, taking my hand. Let's get you out of this basement. You'll stay in one of the guest rooms from now on. It's more fitting for my fiancé. The word sends a jolt through me. Fiancé. What have I gotten myself into? As Luca leads me up the stairs and into the main part of the house, my mind races with the implications of what I've just done. I've tied myself to a dangerous man, a criminal, a killer. But I've also secured protection for my family, a shield against whatever storm is coming our way. And deep down, in a part of myself I'm not ready to examine too closely, I can't deny the thrill that runs through me at the thought of being Luca's wife. The attraction between us is undeniable, a force as powerful and dangerous as Luca himself. As we reach the top of the stairs, Luca pauses, turning to face me. His eyes search mine, filled with an intensity that takes my breath away. Thank you, Natalia, he says softly. I know this isn't easy for you, but I promise I'll make it worth your while. The double meaning in his words isn't lost on me. I swallow hard, heat pooling low in my belly despite my best efforts to remain detached. I'll hold you to that, I manage to say. Luca's lips curve into a predatory smile that sends shivers down my spine. Oh, I'm counting on it. As he leads me deeper into the house, towards my new life as Luka Volkov's fiancé, I can't shake the feeling that I've just made a deal with the devil himself. But whether it will be my salvation or my damnation remains to be seen.
Chapter 7. Luka. The soft strains of a string quartet fill the air as I adjust my cufflinks, standing at the altar in a fitted tux that's a departure from my usual dark attire. The deep mauve fabric catches the light, giving off a subtle sheen that speaks of wealth and refinement. It's all part of the illusion we're crafting today. I scan the small, intimate venue I've rented for this charade. Every detail has been meticulously planned, from the lush floral arrangements to the soft glow of candles scattered throughout the space. The scent of roses and lilies hangs heavy in the air, almost cloying in its sweetness. The guests, all hired actors playing the roles of our closest friends and family, mill about, chatting and laughing as if this were any normal wedding. But there's nothing normal about this day. I insisted on making it look as real as possible. If people were going to believe our story, we had to sell it. And I'm nothing if not thorough. The venue, a converted mansion on the outskirts of Moscow, is picture perfect. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the polished hardwood floors. Garlands of white roses and baby's breath adorn every surface, their delicate petals a stark contrast to the danger that lurks just beneath this facade of romance. A hush falls over the crowd as the wedding march begins. I turn, my breath catching in my throat as Natalia appears at the end of the aisle. She's a vision in white, her A-line gown hugging every curve before flaring out at her hips. Delicate lace sleeves cover her arms, and a gauzy veil obscures her face. The dress is a masterpiece, clearly designer. I made sure of that. Nothing but the best for my bride, even if this is all for show. She's breathtaking, and she looks like she'd rather be anywhere else in the world. As Natalia glides down the aisle, I can see the tension in her shoulders, the tightness around her eyes. To anyone else, she might look like a blushing bride with a case of nerves. But I know better. Every step she takes is filled with reluctance, maybe even resentment. Her eyes dart around the room, taking in the elaborate decorations, the faces of our guests, and I can practically hear the scathing commentary running through her mind. It should bother me, her obvious distaste for this whole affair, but instead I find myself oddly amused. Her fire, her stubbornness, it's part of what drew me to her in the first place. And now, watching her approach with that barely concealed irritation, I'm reminded of just how captivating she truly is. Natalia reaches the altar, and I offer her my hand. She takes it, her grip just a little too tight to be comfortable. I have to suppress a smirk at her small act of defiance. Even now, in front of all these people, she can't help but push back against me. "You look stunning," I murmur, pitching my voice low so only she can hear. Natalia's eyes narrow slightly. "Let's just get this over with," she replies through gritted teeth, her smile never wavering for the benefit of our audience. It's all brimstone and fire with this lovely woman, but that translates well to the bedroom. I already know she's attracted to me physically, at least, as I've had a taste of her passion before our next unfortunate encounter. But although there's a stark disadvantage to killing a woman's father in front of her, a benefit has come out of it that's simply undeniable. I get to marry her, and even now, it all feels like a dream. The officiant begins the ceremony, his voice resonating through the space with practiced solemnity. I tune out most of it, my focus entirely on the woman beside me. Natalia stands ramrod straight, her posture almost militaristic in its rigidity. Every few moments I catch her stifling an eye roll or biting back a sigh. It's entertaining, really. Here we are, surrounded by the trappings of a fairy tale wedding, and my bride looks like she's enduring some form of medieval torture. But even in her obvious discomfort, she's mesmerizing. The sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows catches on her auburn hair, setting it ablaze with golden highlights. Her skin seems to glow, the creamy expanse of her neck and shoulders a temptation I can barely resist. I find my mind wandering to our night together in the hotel, before everything went to hell. The memory of her soft skin under my hands, the taste of her lips, the sounds she made as she came undone beneath me. It all comes rushing back, sending a jolt of heat through my body. I shift slightly, trying to focus on the present moment. When it comes time for the vows, I turn to face Natalia fully. Her eyes meet mine, a challenge burning in those emerald depths. I begin to recite the words we'd agreed upon, flowery declarations of love and devotion that sound hollow even to my own ears. Natalia, I say, injecting as much warmth into my voice as I can muster. From the moment I saw you, I knew my life would never be the same. You've brought light into my world, joy into my heart. I promise to cherish and protect you, to stand by your side through whatever life may bring. Something flickers in Natalia's eyes, surprise maybe, at the sincerity in my tone. Because despite the falseness of this ceremony, despite the circumstances that brought us here, I find that I mean every word. The realization is unsettling, to say the least. Natalia clears her throat, a faint blush coloring her cheeks as she begins her own vows. Luca, she says, her voice steady despite the tension I can see in the set of her jaw. You've shown me a world I never knew existed. Your strength, your passion, they inspire me every day. I promise to be your partner in all things, to face whatever challenges come our way together. As I slide the ring onto her finger, a flawless diamond that cost more than most people make in a year, I lean in close. You're going to have to sell this act to your family, I whisper, my lips barely moving. Natalia's eyes flash with annoyance. They wouldn't even buy the ring, much less my willingness to marry you, she mutters back, her smile never faltering. Do it anyway, I reply, an edge of warning in my tone. We both know what's at stake here. If her family doesn't believe our whirlwind romance, if anyone starts asking too many questions, the whole house of cards could come tumbling down. I'm posing as an investor she met at her fashion show. According to our carefully crafted story, we fell madly in love and decided to elope. It's a tale as old as time, the passionate designer and the wealthy businessman swept away by a whirlwind romance. The wedding is meant to make our story airtight, and I'm not taking any chances. The officiant pronounces us husband and wife, and I pull Natalia in for a kiss. It's meant to be chaste, a performance for our audience, but the moment our lips meet, something electric passes between us. Natalia stiffens for a moment before melting into me, her lips softening under mine. I pull her closer, one hand at the small of her back, the other tangling in her carefully styled hair. For a heartbeat, I forget about the charade, about the danger lurking just beyond these flower-bedecked walls. There's only Natalia, the feel of her in my arms, the taste of her on my lips. It's intoxicating, this connection between us. Even knowing it's built on lies and desperation, I can't deny the pull she has on me. All too soon, it's over. We break apart, both a little breathless, and turn to face our guests. They erupt in applause, showering us with rose petals as we make our way back down the aisle. The scent of crushed petals rises around us, mingling with Natalia's perfume, something floral and delicate that stands in stark contrast to the fire in her eyes. As we exit the venue, I catch Natalia watching me out of the corner of her eye. There's confusion there, and something else. A heat that matches the fire still burning in my veins from that kiss. It's a dangerous combination, this mix of attraction and animosity between us. But then again, I've never been one to shy away from danger. Well done, I say as we climb into the waiting limousine. You almost had me convinced. Natalia's eyes narrow, but there's a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. I could say the same to you, she retorts. Those vows were surprisingly believable. I lean back in my seat, studying her. Even with the irritation still evident in the set of her shoulders, she's stunning. The wedding dress hugs her curves in all the right places, the delicate lace a tantalizing contrast to the smooth expanse of her skin. I find myself wanting to trace the patterns with my fingers, to peel away the layers of fabric and rediscover every inch of her. Who says I was acting? I ask, letting a hint of challenge creep into my voice. Natalia's eyes widen slightly, caught off guard by my words. For a moment, I think she might actually believe me, but then her walls come back up, her expression closing off. "Right," she says, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Because this is also real. The hired guests, the staged ceremony, it's a real fairy tale romance." I can't help but chuckle at her biting tone. "Come now, wife," I say, emphasizing the word. "Where's your sense of adventure? We've just embarked on a grand performance. The wedding was merely Act 1. Natalia rolls her eyes, but I catch the hint of a smile she tries to hide. "And what's Act 2? She asks, unable to completely mask her curiosity. I lean in closer, close enough to catch the faint scent of her perfume. "That's where things get interesting," I murmur. "We have a reputation to uphold now, after all. Can't have anyone questioning the validity of our union." A shiver runs through Natalia. Whether from my proximity or my words, I'm not sure. "What exactly are you suggesting?" she asks, her voice low and slightly husky. I reach out, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. My fingers linger on her cheek, tracing the soft curve of her jaw. "I'm suggesting, my dear, that we give the performance of a lifetime, starting with a very public, very romantic honeymoon." Natalia's breath catches, her pupils dilating slightly. I can practically see the wheels turning in her head as she processes the implications of my words. When she speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper. "And how far are you expecting this performance to go?" The heat in her gaze, the slight tremor in her voice, they send a jolt of desire straight through me. I lean in even closer, my lips brushing the shell of her ear as I speak. "As far as you're willing to take it, Natalia. After all, we are newlyweds." She pulls back slightly, her eyes searching mine. I can see the conflict there, the lingering anger and resentment warring with the undeniable attraction between us. "This doesn't change anything," she says finally, her voice firm despite the slight quiver in her lower lip. "I still hate you for what you've done." I nod, not bothering to deny it. "I know," I say simply. "But hate and desire aren't mutually exclusive, are they?" Natalia's sharp intake of breath is all the answer I need. I settle back in my seat, a smirk tugging up the corners of my mouth. "Get some rest, wife," I say, my tone light but with an undercurrent of heat. "You're going to need it for our honeymoon." As the limousine winds its way through the streets of Moscow, I can't help but feel a thrill of anticipation. Natalia Orlova may have agreed to this marriage out of desperation, but I intend to make her mine in every way possible. The passion between us is undeniable, a living, breathing thing that threatens to consume us both, and I'm more than ready to fan those flames. I steal another glance at Natalia, admiring the way the fading sunlight plays across her features. She's still tense, still wary, but there's a softness to her expression that wasn't there before. It's a start. By the time our honeymoon is over, I have a feeling she'll be just as invested in this union as I am. The game has only just begun, and I intend to win. Not just her body. I've had that already. No, I want it all. Her trust, her loyalty, her heart. And Luka Volkov always gets what he wants. Let the real performance begin.
Chapter 8. Natalia. The elevator chimes softly as we reach the top floor of the boutique hotel in the heart of Moscow. Luka's hand rests on the small of my back, a gesture that should be comforting but instead sends shivers up my spine. I'm hyper-aware of his presence, the heat of his body so close to mine, the faint scent of his cologne mingling with the lingering fragrance of wedding flowers. As the doors slide open, revealing a plush hallway decorated in shades of cream and gold, reality comes crashing down on me once again. This is my honeymoon, with a man I'm supposed to hate. A man who, despite everything, still makes my heart race with a single touch. I've sacrificed the rest of my life for him. All the men who I could have met, fallen in love with, and lived my happily ever after with have been shut out. They'll go on to find other women, better ones who aren't mixed up with organized crime, and I'll be left with Luca. Now, I must wake up in the morning and hear his grumbling voice. The sun won't shine without his black shadow cascading over me, asking about how my day was. And that's only if he pretends to care. Luca guides me down the hall, his stride confident and purposeful. I feel like a deer caught in headlights, my feet moving of their own accord. We stop in front of a set of ornate double doors, and Luca produces a key card with a flourish. "Ready to see our love nest, Mrs. Volkova?" he asks, a hint of amusement in his voice. I scowl at him, hating how easily he seems to be taking this whole charade. "Just open the door, Luca." He chuckles, the sound low and rich, sending an involuntary shiver through me. The door swings open, revealing a suite that takes my breath away despite my best efforts to remain unimpressed. The room is massive, easily twice the size of my old apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer a stunning view of the Moscow skyline, the city lights twinkling like stars against the darkening sky. A massive king-sized bed dominates one side of the room, piled high with pillows and draped in luxurious linens. But what catches my eye is the distinct lack of a second sleeping area. "You can't be serious," I say, whirling to face Luca. "Where's your room?" Luca raises an eyebrow, that infuriating smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "This is my room, darling. Our room, to be precise." I feel the heat rising to my cheeks, a mixture of anger and something else I don't want to examine too closely. "You expect us to share? After everything that's happened? How do I know you're not going to kill me in my sleep?" Luca shrugs, stepping further into the room and loosening his bow tie. The casual movement draws my attention to the strong column of his throat, and I have to force myself to look away. "We need to make this as believable as possible," he says, his tone maddeningly reasonable. "What kind of newlyweds would we be if we slept in separate rooms?" I open my mouth to argue, but he cuts me off with a wave of his hand. "Relax, Natalia. I'll take the couch if it means my blushing bride can sleep in comfort." The teasing lilt in his voice when he says blushing bride makes me want to scream. Instead, I settle for an eye roll that would make any teenager proud. "How chivalrous of you," I mutter, stomping further into the room. I head straight for the windows, needing to put some distance between us. The view really is spectacular, the lights of the city stretching out as far as the eye can see. For a moment, I let myself get lost in it, trying to forget the surreal situation I've found myself in. Behind me, I hear Luca moving about the room, the soft rustle of fabric as he removes his jacket. I catch a glimpse of his reflection in the window, the broad expanse of his shoulders, the way his shirt clings to his muscular frame. My traitorous body responds, a flicker of heat igniting low in my belly. I close my eyes, trying to regain control. This is ridiculous. I shouldn't be attracted to him. He's dangerous, a killer, the man responsible for turning my life upside down. But my body doesn't seem to care about those facts, responding to his proximity like a flower turning towards the sun. "Penny for your thoughts?" Luca's voice, closer now, startles me out of my reverie. I turn to find him watching me, his expression unreadable. He's rolled up his sleeves, exposing strong forearms dusted with dark hair. It's an oddly intimate sight, and I have to swallow hard before I can speak. "I was just thinking about how surreal this all is," I say, gesturing vaguely at the opulent room. "A week ago, I was just a fashion designer with a normal life. And now you're married to the most dangerous man in Moscow?" Luca supplies, a hint of dark humor in his voice. I snort, some of the tension easing from my shoulders. "Something like that, yes." Luca takes a step closer, and I instinctively back up, my legs hitting the window seat behind me. He pauses, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. "I'm not going to hurt you, Natalia," he says softly. I thought I'd made that clear by now. "Sorry, you'll forgive me if I have trouble trusting the word of a man who kidnapped me and killed my father," I retort, but there's less venom in my voice than I'd like. Luca winces, genuine regret flashing across his face. "I know I have a lot to make up for," he says. "But I meant what I said in my vows." I will protect you, Natalia. You and your family. I want to scoff, to remind him that he's the reason my family needs protection in the first place. But the sincerity in his eyes gives me pause. Despite everything, I find myself wanting to believe him. I don't know how to do this, Luca. I admit, my voice barely above a whisper. How am I supposed to pretend to be in love with you when I can barely sort out how I feel? Luca takes another step closer, and this time I don't back away. He reaches out, his fingers grazing my cheek so lightly I almost think I imagined it. Who says we have to pretend? The words hang in the air between us, loaded with possibility. I should step back, put some distance between us. But my body seems to have other ideas. Instead, I find myself leaning into his touch, my eyes fluttering closed for just a moment. When I open them again, Luca is even closer, his face mere inches from mine. I can see the flecks of gold in his blue eyes, the faint stubble along his jaw. Without conscious thought, my gaze drops to his lips. Natalia, he murmurs, and the way he says my name sends a shiver down my spine. Tell me to stop, and I will. My mind races, weighing the pros and cons of giving in to this attraction. On one hand, it's dangerous, complicated, potentially disastrous. On the other, the memory of our night together in the hotel flashes through my mind, sending a jolt of heat through my body. I start, then falter. Do I want him to stop? Or do I want to lose myself in him? Consequences be damned. Luca's thumb traces my lower lip, the touch feather-light but electrifying. Just say the word, he says, his voice low and husky. I'll back off, sleep on the couch. We can keep things strictly professional. The thought of him pulling away, of losing this connection, tenuous as it may be, makes my chest ache in a way I'm not prepared for. Before I can overthink it, I reach up, balling my fist into the fabric of his shirt. And if I don't want you to stop? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Luca's eyes darken, a voracious gleam entering them. Then tell me what you do want, Natalia. I take a deep breath, gathering my courage. This is probably a mistake, one that will only complicate things further. But in this moment, with Luca looking at me like I'm the only woman in the world, I can't bring myself to care. I want you to convince me, I say, lifting my chin in challenge. If you want me to sell this marriage, then prove to me it's worth selling. For a moment, Luca doesn't move. He searches my face, looking for any sign of hesitation or doubt. Finding none, he smiles. A slow, dangerous smile that makes my knees weak. As you wish, Mrs. Volkov, he says, and then his lips are on mine.
The following scene is too spicy to be included in this version. You can find the unedited version on bellakingbooks.com or by following the link in the video description. Your book will now continue.
Chapter 9. Natalia. The delicate aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries coaxes me from my slumber. I blink groggily, my hand instinctively reaching for Luca's warmth beside me. When my fingers meet only cool sheets, my eyes snap open, suddenly alert. For a moment, panic grips my chest. Was last night a dream? Has Luca left me alone just as he did that first night we spent together? But no, the soreness in my muscles and the lingering scent of his cologne on the pillow are proof enough that it was real. I sit up slowly, clutching the silky sheets to my chest as I survey the empty room. That's when I notice the gentle clink of cutlery coming from beyond the bedroom door. Curiosity piqued, I slip out of bed, wincing slightly at the pleasant ache between my thighs. I grab the nearest item of clothing, one of Luca's discarded dress shirts from the night before, and button it hastily, then slip it over my head. The shirt hangs nearly to my knees, engulfing me in Luca's scent. Despite knowing better, I find the sensation oddly comforting. I pad barefoot to the door, cracking it open to peer into the suite's living area. The sight that greets me is so unexpectedly domestic that for a moment I forget to breathe. Luca stands at the dining table, meticulously arranging an array of dishes that make my mouth water instantly. The smell of fresh coffee and warm breakfast greets my nose, cooked to perfection. I watch, transfixed, as he adjusts the placement of a vase filled with fresh-cut flowers, his brow furrowed in concentration. This is a side of him I've never seen before, the dangerous Mafia boss playing at being a doting husband. The juxtaposition is as jarring as it is intriguing. I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined this side of him. Are you going to stand there all day, or would you like to join me? Luca's deep voice cuts through my reverie, amusement evident in his tone. I can feel your eyes drilling through me. I feel heat rise to my cheeks, embarrassed at being caught staring. I step fully into the room, crossing my arms over my chest in a futile attempt to maintain some dignity. I didn't expect to find you playing housewife, I quip, arching an eyebrow at him. Luca's lips quirk into that infuriatingly handsome smirk of his. I'm a man of many talents, Mrs. Volkova. I thought you'd have realized that by now. The sound of my new surname on his tongue sends an unexpected thrill through me. It feels like being owned by him, fully claimed, a feeling I shouldn't relish so much. I push the feeling aside, focusing instead on the mouth-watering spread in front of me. You did all this? I ask, gesturing to the table. Poached eggs, fresh bacon. Are those croissants? Luca shrugs, the movement causing the muscles in his shoulders to ripple beneath his fitted shirt. I ordered room service, but I did arrange it myself. How thoughtful, I mutter, unable to keep the surprise from my voice. Don't sound so shocked. Luca chuckles. I'm capable of being considerate when the occasion calls for it. He pulls out a chair, gesturing for me to sit. Now eat. We have matters to discuss. I hesitate for a moment before taking the offered seat. As much as I hate to admit it, the gesture is oddly sweet. I watch as Luca pours me a cup of coffee, adding just the right amount of cream and sugar without having to ask. How did you know how I take my coffee? I ask, narrowing my eyes suspiciously. Luca's smirk widens. I've made it my business to know everything about you, Natalia. You'd be surprised at the things I've learned. You enjoy talking to the press and posting on social media enough that I was able to glean quite a bit. And that was before I had my investigator look further. The casual admission sends a shiver down my spine. It's a brutal reminder that beneath the veneer of domesticity, Luca is still a dangerous man. We eat in companionable silence for a few minutes, the tension between us simmering just beneath the surface. I find myself sneaking glances at Luca over the rim of my coffee cup, admiring the way the morning light plays across his chiseled features. You need to call your mother and sister, Luca says abruptly, breaking the silence. I nearly choke on my croissant. What? Why? To tell them about our marriage, of course, Luca replies, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world. It's the only way to make our story believable. But, I begin, only to be cut off by Luca's raised hand. I've already sent photos of the ceremony to the press, he continues, his tone leaving no room for argument. A fashion journalist will be publishing them within the next few hours. It's best if your family hears the news from you first. I feel the blood drain from my face. You did what? I hiss, my earlier appreciation for his thoughtfulness evaporating instantly. Luca's expression remains impassive. It's necessary, Natalia. We need to control the narrative before someone else jumps in. Now, call your family. For a moment, I consider refusing, but the steely glint in Luca's eyes tells me it isn't a request. With a frustrated sigh, I reach for my phone. My finger hovers over Alina's contact for a long moment before I finally press call. The phone rings once, twice before my sister's voice fills the line. Natalia! Alina's tone is a mixture of relief and confusion. Oh my God, where have you been? We've been worried sick. My heart clenches at the concern in my sister's voice. I'm okay, Alina. I'm sorry I haven't called. Things have been complicated. Complicated, Alina echoes. Natalia, we reported you as a missing person. We thought the mob had taken you. Or worse. Guilt washes over me in waves. I glance at Luca, who's watching me intently, his expression unreadable. I'm so sorry, I say, my voice thick with emotion. I never meant to worry you. Something happened. Something big. There's a pause on the other end of the line. What do you mean, something big? I take a deep breath, steeling myself. I got married. The silence that follows is deafening. I can practically hear the gears turning in my sister's head. What? Alina finally manages, her voice barely above a whisper. I must be mishearing. I got married, I repeat, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. To Luca, the man I met at my after-party. He rescued me, Alina, and we fell in love. It happened so fast, but it felt right. We decided to elope. The lie tastes bitter, but I force myself to continue. I can feel Luca's eyes on me, silently urging me on. Natalia, this is insane, Alina says, her voice rising with each word. Dad was just murdered, and you're off getting married to some man you barely know? What about your brand? You swore you wouldn't get married until Orlova Couture was a household name. I wince at the mention of our father. I know, but things are different with Luca. He's unlike anyone I've ever met. At that, Luca's lips curl into a self-satisfied smirk. I shoot him a glare, mouthing, "Shut up," even though he hasn't said a word. I don't understand, Alina says, her voice small and confused. This isn't like you, Natalia. Are you sure you're okay? Are you safe? The concern in my sister's voice makes my eyes prick with tears. I'm fine, Alina. I promise. I know it's a lot to take in, but I'm happy. Really. There's a long pause, filled only by the sound of Alina's shaky breathing. Mom needs to hear this, she says finally. Can you hold on while I get her? Of course, I say, my stomach churning with anxiety. I wanted to talk to her anyway. As I wait for my mother to come to the phone, I look to Luca. His expression has softened slightly, a hint of concern creasing his brow. Without a word, he reaches across the table, taking my free hand in his. The gesture is unexpectedly comforting. Natalia? My mother's voice, usually so composed, trembles with emotion. My darling, is it really you? Yes, Mama, I say, fighting back tears. It's me. I'm okay. Where have you been? We've been so worried. After your father... Her voice breaks, unable to finish the sentence. I know, Mama. I'm so sorry. I squeeze Luca's hand, drawing strength from his touch. I have something to tell you. Something important. As I repeat the story of my whirlwind romance and impromptu marriage, I can practically feel my mother's shock radiating through the phone. When I finish, the silence stretches on for what feels like an eternity. I don't know what to say. She finally speaks, her voice heavy with a mixture of relief and disappointment. This is unexpected, to say the least. I know it's a lot to process, I say softly, but I hope you can be happy for me, Mama. Luca, he's good to me. He makes me feel safe. Another long pause follows. If this is truly what you want, then of course I'm happy for you, my mother says at last. But please, Natalia, be careful. There's so much we don't know about this man. I will, Mama. I promise. After a few more minutes of tense conversation, I finally end the call. I set my phone down on the table, my hand shaking slightly. Well, Luca says, his thumb tracing soothing circles on the back of my hand. That went better than expected. I let out a humorless laugh. If by better you mean they didn't immediately disown me, then sure. Luca's expression turned serious. They'll come around, Natalia. Give them time. Besides, everyone is safer this way. They might not know it, but your decision is keeping them out of the hand of some very bad people. I nod, not trusting myself to speak. The reality of our situation is beginning to sink in, the weight of it pressing down on my chest. He's manipulating me in such a cruel way, but I can't deny that this is the only thing keeping my family safe. He's right, even though it hurts. Listen, Luca says, his voice gentler than I've ever heard it. We have the suite for the rest of the week. Why don't we stay a few more days? Give you some time to process everything before we face the world as husband and wife. I look up at him, surprised by the offer. Part of me wants to refuse, to assert some semblance of control over my life. But the thought of facing my family, the press, the endless questions and judgment, it's overwhelming. Okay, I say finally, my voice barely above a whisper. A few more days. Luca nods, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Good. Now, eat your breakfast before it gets cold. We have a honeymoon to enjoy, after all. As I pick up my fork, I can't help but wonder what exactly I've gotten myself into.
Chapter 10. Luca. The steady drumming of water against tile fills the spacious bathroom as I step into the shower. Steam rises around me, enveloping my body in its warm embrace. I close my eyes, letting the hot water cascade over my tense muscles, willing it to wash away the stress of the past few days. It's been a whirlwind since Natalia and I exchanged vows in that staged ceremony. Our honeymoon has been a strange dance of passion and hesitation, desire and doubt. Every moment with her is intoxicating. Yet I can't shake the feeling that I'm playing with fire, and I'm the one most likely to get burned. As if summoned by my thoughts, I hear the bathroom door open. My eyes snap open, my body instantly alert. Luca? Natalia's voice, soft and hesitant, carries over the sound of running water. Are you in here? The following scene is too spicy to be included in this version. You can find the unedited version on bellakingbooks.com or by following the link in the video description. Your book will now continue.
Chapter 11. Natalia. The elevator dings softly as I step onto my floor, the familiar scent of lavender air freshener greeting me. 2 months. It's been 2 months since I last saw Luca, since our whirlwind honeymoon ended and reality came crashing back in. I thought I'd see him more often, but it seems like he's content just disappearing and not talking to me. He's barely even sent a text since we parted ways after the honeymoon. Too wrapped up in business to care about his pretend wife. So much for selling this marriage. Even I'm starting to doubt I ever walked down the aisle. Maybe it was all a dream. Maybe I'm single again and I just don't know it. Not that I have the appetite for anyone else. Once Luca's hands were on me, I knew I didn't want to be touched by anyone else. We're enemies with benefits. Although the later part of that is really starting to seem like it's never going to happen again. But that's not the worst of this whole situation. There's something else I've had to address. Something I should have been far more careful about. I adjust my grip on my purse, fighting back another wave of nausea as I make my way down the hallway to my penthouse. The doctor's words echo in my mind, making my head spin. Pregnant. I'm pregnant. With Luca's child. I pause at my door, fumbling with my keys. My hands are shaking, and I can't tell if it's from the news or just another lovely symptom of my condition. Taking a deep breath, I steady myself and push the door open. The moment I step inside, I know something's off. There's a presence in my home, a subtle shift in the air that sets my nerves on edge. My heart rate kicks up, adrenaline flooding my system as I cautiously move further into the apartment. That's when I see him. Luca is lounging on my couch as if he belongs there, his imposing figure a stark contrast to my carefully curated feminine decor. He's as devastatingly handsome as ever, dressed in a tailored suit that hugs his muscular frame in all the right places. His piercing blue eyes lock onto mine, a smile dancing across his face when he sees me. "Welcome home, wife," he drawls, his deep voice sending an involuntary shiver down my spine. I clench my fists at my sides, torn between the urge to throw myself into his arms and the desire to slap that smug look off his face. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demand, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. "How did you even get in?" Luca raises an eyebrow, his smirk widening. "Is that any way to greet your husband? As for how I got in?" He shrugs, the movement causing his shirt to stretch enticingly across his broad chest. "I have my ways." "You broke in," I say flatly, crossing my arms over my chest. I ignore the way my body reacts to his presence, the traitorous flutter in my stomach that has nothing to do with morning sickness. "Broke in?" Luca repeats, feigning offense. "Darling, I'm hurt by your words. How can a man break into his own home?" I roll my eyes, shrugging off my jacket and tossing it onto a nearby chair with more force than necessary. "This isn't your home, Luca. And don't call me darling." He stands in one fluid motion, crossing the room to me in a few long strides. I have to tilt my head back to meet his gaze, cursing the way my breath catches at his proximity, the smell of him washing over me. "You didn't seem to mind me calling you darling before," he murmurs, his voice low and intimate. "In fact, if I recall correctly, you quite enjoyed it. More than once a day at times." Heat floods my cheeks as memories of our time together flash through my mind. The feeling of his hands on my body, his lips trailing fire across my skin, the way he'd growl, "darling," in my ear as he... No. I shake my head, forcing those thoughts away. "That was then," I say, taking a step back to put some distance between us. "This is now. What do you want, Luca?" He studies me for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without warning, he reaches out and cups my face in his large, calloused hand. The gentle touch is such a contrast to his usual demeanor that it catches me off guard. "You look pale," he says, concern evident in his voice. "Are you feeling all right?" I swallow hard, very aware of the pamphlet burning a hole in my purse. Should I tell him? The words are on the tip of my tongue, but fear holds them back. We agreed this would be casual, after all, and I have no idea how he'll react. "I'm fine," I lie, pulling away from his touch. "Just tired. Now, are you going to tell me why you're here, or should I call security?" Luca's eyes narrow slightly, and I know he doesn't believe me. But he doesn't push, instead moving back to sit on the couch. "I need your help with something," he says, his tone shifting to all business. "A favor from my beautiful wife." I raise an eyebrow, curiosity getting the better of me. "Oh? And what could the great Luka Volkov possibly need my help with? You seem to have been able to handle your business just fine on your own all this time." He shrugs his broad shoulders. "You're not really angry at me about this, are you? I was giving you space. It's not like you really wanted to marry me." "You wanted it," I snap. "And now you're acting like you don't. Barely a text, not even a visit." "I'm visiting now," he replies, cocking his head to the side like he doesn't understand my frustration. "Because you want something," I say, grabbing the roots of my hair and tugging them. His voice is calm, much more than mine is. "That's what this is about, darling. We both want something from each other, and the marriage is simply to ensure we both get what we need. Or have you forgot that already?" I grit my teeth at his response, but he's right. We agreed not to have feelings, and the first thing I did when he left was start daydreaming about our future together. Silence settles over us, and I let out a sigh. "Okay, so what is it that you want?" He leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "The governor's wife is hosting her annual birthday bash next week. I need to attend." "And you need me because..." I prompt, even though I have a sinking feeling I already know the answer. "Because you always get an invite," Luca says, confirming my suspicions. "And because the good governor owes me a substantial sum of money. I intend to collect." I stare at him, incredulous. "What are you, a loan shark?" Luca's laugh is dark and without humor. "Not quite. I murdered his opponent so he could become governor. He seems to have forgotten that little favor lately. It's time he had a reminder." The casual way he admits to murder sends a chill down my spine. It's easy to forget sometimes just how dangerous Luca really is, how different our worlds are. I struggle to find the words, disgust and a reluctant sort of admiration warring within me. That's horrible and illegal. And, God, Luca, do you have any idea how corrupt that is? He shrugs, seemingly unbothered by my reaction. It's business, Natalia. Nothing personal. And if the corruption of Moscow is new to you, well, I regret to inform you that it's part of the fabric of our society. Your society, not mine. I shake my head, pacing the length of my living room. I can't believe you're asking me to help you with this. It's wrong on so many levels. Says the woman who married me to protect her family. Luca counters, his voice maddeningly calm. We all do what we must to survive in this world, kitten. At least I'm honest about it. His words hit home and I stop pacing to look at him. He's right in a way. I made my choice when I agreed to this arrangement. Can I really judge him for playing by the rules of his world? A world I willingly stepped into, knowing what I was getting in the end? Fine, I say after a long moment. I'll take you to the party. But only because I hate cheaters and liars even more than I hate corruption. At least you're upfront about your misdeeds. Luca's answering smile is predatory, sending a shiver of equal parts fear and excitement down my spine. I knew I could count on you, wife. He stands, adjusting his suit jacket. As he moves towards the door, I'm struck by a sudden irrational fear that if I let him walk out now, I might never see him again. The thought makes my chest ache in a way I'm not prepared to examine too closely. Luca, wait, I call out, surprising myself. He pauses, turning back to me with a raised eyebrow. Yes? I open my mouth, then close it again. The truth is there, on the tip of my tongue. I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby. But the words won't come. Instead, I hear myself asking, Will you stay for dinner? Surprise flashes across Luca's face, quickly replaced by something softer, almost vulnerable. I'd like that, he says quietly. As I move to the kitchen to start preparing a meal, my mind races. I should tell him about the baby. He has a right to know. But the memory of his words from our honeymoon echoes in my ears. My world isn't safe for real relationships, for families. Would he even want this child? Would he resent me for trapping him in the very situation he swore to avoid? And what kind of life could we offer a baby, with Luca's dangerous lifestyle and my own career ambitions? I swore that I wouldn't be like my mother, that I wouldn't give up my career for a family. But the truth is, I don't know how to do both. I'm so lost in thought that I don't hear Luca approach until his arms wrap around my waist from behind. I stiffen for a moment before relaxing into his embrace, hating how right it feels, grateful that my stomach is still flat. What's really going on, Natalia? He murmurs, his breath hot against my ear. You're not yourself today. I know I haven't known you for long, but even I can tell that much. I close my eyes, leaning back against his solid chest. It would be so easy to turn in his arms, to bury my face in the crook of his neck and confess everything. To let him take control, to shoulder this burden with me. But I can't. Not yet. Not until I figure out what I want. What's best for this unexpected life growing inside me. It's nothing, I lie, forcing a smile as I turn to face him. I'm just glad you're here. Luca studies me for a long moment, his piercing gaze seeming to see right through me. It travels through my flesh and bones, entering my core where my nervous soul rests. Then, slowly, he leans down and kisses me. I melt into him, all thoughts of dinner forgotten as his hands roam my body. It's been too long since I've felt his touch, and my body responds eagerly, bowing into him as if we were made for each other. Luca, I gasp as he trails hot kisses down my neck. We shouldn't. Why not? He growls, nipping at my pulse point. You're my wife, aren't you? even if it's just on paper. The reminder of our arrangement is like a bucket of cold water. I push him away gently, trying to ignore the hurt that flashes in his eyes. "You're right," I say, hating how breathless I sound. "This is just business. We should keep things professional between us." Luca takes a step back, his expression closing off. "Of course," he says, his voice clipped. "My apologies, Mrs. Volkova. I'll see myself out." Before I can stop him, he's gone, the door clicking shut behind him with a finality that makes my heart ache. I slump against the kitchen counter, one hand coming to rest on my still flat stomach. What am I going to do? I whisper to the empty apartment, tears pricking at my eyes. As the silence stretches on, offering no answers, I can't shake the feeling that I've just made a terrible mistake. But which one was worse? Letting Luca go or not telling him the truth? Only time will tell. And time, it seems, is the one luxury I no longer have. With shaking hands, I reach into my purse and pull out the pamphlet from my doctor's appointment. The words, "Your first trimester," stare back at me, a stark reminder of the life growing inside me. I trace the outline of a developing fetus on the cover, my vision blurring with unshed tears. "Oh, Luca," I whispered to the empty room. "What have we done?" The weight of my secret feels crushing now, made heavier by Luca's departure. I slide down to the floor, my back against the kitchen cabinets, and let the tears fall freely. The pamphlet crumples in my grip as I hug my knees to my chest. In this moment, the reality of my situation hits me full force. I'm pregnant with the child of a dangerous man. A man I'm irresistibly drawn to but can never truly have. A man who just admitted to murder as casually as discussing the weather. And yet, despite everything, a small part of me yearns for a future with Luca. A future where we're more than just a business arrangement. Where this baby is a blessing rather than a complication. The image of Luca cradling our child, his usually hard eyes softened with love, flashes through my mind, making my heart burn with longing. But can I risk it? Can I bring an innocent child into this world of danger and violence? And more importantly, can I trust Luca with something as precious and vulnerable as our baby? So as the night deepens around me, I remain on the kitchen floor, torn between hope and fear, love and duty. The pamphlet lies open beside me, a constant reminder of the choice I'll have to make. The tiles are cool against my hot skin, and I allow myself to spread out on them, willing them to take away some of the pulsating regret and anxiety that permeates my skin. I've done this to myself, but I want to point the finger elsewhere. At Luca, at my father even. But none of that would change the situation I'm in. Nothing changes the fact that I've fallen pregnant with Luca's baby. "I'm sorry, little one," I murmur, placing a hand on my still flat stomach. "I promise, no matter what happens, I'll always protect you." As I finally drag myself to bed, exhausted and emotionally drained, the consequences of my fleeting passion follow me like a heavy black cloak pinned to my aching shoulders. I can't rid myself of the feeling that this is just the beginning of a story that will either lead to the ruin of everything I hold dear or change my life and the lives of everyone around me. Forever. Only time will tell. And time, it seems, is the one thing money and power can't control.
Chapter 12. Luca. The governor's mansion looms before us, its white marble facade gleaming in the moonlight. As our car pulls up to the circular driveway, I feel a twinge of anticipation. Not for the party itself. I've attended more of these vapid affairs than I care to count, but for the woman beside me. I glance at Natalia, drinking in the sight of her. The green dress I chose for her clings to every curve, the color making her eyes shine like perfect jewels. Her fiery hair is swept up in an elegant updo, exposing the graceful line of her neck. A gorgeous golden necklace with a stunning diamond nestles just above the curve of her elegant cleavage. She's breathtaking, and the possessive part of me relishes knowing she's here as my wife for everyone to see. But the other part of me regrets the way I've pushed her away. We could have leaned into this disastrous passion, but I've allowed it to fizzle out. And now I carry the consequences on my back. A heavy burden. Ready? I ask, offering Natalia my hand as the driver opens the door. She takes a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. As I'll ever be, she replies, placing her hand in mine. The warmth of her skin against mine sends a jolt of electricity through me. I resist the urge to pull her close, to claim her lips in front of God and everyone. Instead, I help her from the car, my hand finding the small of her back as we make our way up the grand staircase. The foyer is a cacophony of noise and color, Moscow's elite mingling and preening like peacocks. The scent of expensive perfume and cigar smoke hangs heavy in the air. Natalia tenses beside me, and I give her waist a gentle squeeze. "You've got this, darling," I whisper in her ear. "Just remember, you're Natalia Volkova now. You outrank every person in this room." She shoots me a look that's equal parts irritation and amusement. "Except you, I suppose." I can't help the smirk that tugs at my lips. Naturally. As we step through the marble archways into the grand ballroom, I'm struck once again by Natalia's poise. She moves through the crowd with effortless grace, greeting guests with a warm smile that never quite reaches her eyes. I know she hates these affairs. The fake smiles, the shallow conversations, the constant jockeying for position. But you'd never know it from her demeanor. It's a skill, no doubt honed from years of being Igor Orlov's daughter. As I watch her charm a group of oligarchs' wives, it strikes me how useful her media training will be for the deal I've struck with her. She's a natural at this game of smoke and mirrors, capable of pulling off deceit while charming complete strangers with a smile. "Luka, darling." A shrill voice cuts through my thoughts. I turn to see Anya Ivanova, the birthday girl herself, approaching with arms outstretched. Though it's Anya's 50th, you'd never know it from the work she's had done. "I'm so glad you could make it." I plaster on my most charming smile, bending to kiss her powdered cheek. "Anya, you look radiant as ever. Happy birthday." "Oh, you flatterer," she giggles, swatting my arm playfully. Her gaze slides to Natalia, curiosity and a hint of jealousy flickering in her eyes. "And who is this lovely creature?" I wrap an arm around Natalia's waist, pulling her close. "Allow me to introduce my wife, Natalia Volkova." Anya's eyes widen, her perfectly plucked eyebrows disappearing into her hairline. "Wife? My goodness. Luka, when did this happen?" "Recently," Natalia answers smoothly, extending her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Ivanova. Your home is stunning." As the women exchange pleasantries, I scan the room for Pavel. The governor is nowhere to be seen, but I catch sight of a familiar face that makes my blood run cold. Viktor Orlov, Natalia's uncle, stands near the bar, deep in conversation with a man I recognize as one of the rival Mafia's top lieutenants. This isn't good. I tighten my hold on Natalia, steering her away from Anya as soon as it's polite to do so. "We need to mingle," I say, keeping my voice low and calm. "Your family is here." Natalia stiffens, her smile faltering for just a moment before she recovers. "What? Why would they?" "I don't know," I cut her off, guiding her towards a group of bankers I know to be loyal to me. "But we need to keep up appearances. Act natural." For the next hour, we work the room like the power couple we're pretending to be. Natalia is flawless, her charm and wit keeping our conversation partners enthralled. But I can see the strain around her eyes, the tension in her shoulders. As we step away from yet another group, Natalia lets out a shaky breath. "I haven't seen my mother or sister since my father's funeral," she mutters, bitterness lacing her voice. "They wouldn't even look at me." I open my mouth to respond, but before I can, a familiar voice cuts through the crowd. "Natalia?" We turn to see Alina Orlova approaching, her eyes wide with disbelief. She's the spitting image of her sister, though her hair is a shade darker and her features a touch softer. As she draws closer, her gaze narrows, focusing on me with undisguised hostility. "What are you doing here?" Alina demands, ignoring me completely. "With him?" Natalia straightens, lifting her chin defiantly. "I'm here with my husband, Alina." Surely you remember that I told you about the wedding? Alina's face contorts with a mixture of hurt and anger. The wedding that you told me about after it happened, minutes before a gossip column came out about to spread the news? A column that would have been written before you bothered to tell me you were married. Yes, I remember. How could you, Natalia? After everything that's happened, you go and disappear. I step forward, my voice low and firm. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Miss Orlova. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. Alina's eyes snap to mine, blazing with fury. I have nothing to say to you, asshole. Alina! Natalia hisses, glancing around nervously. Keep your voice down. You don't understand. What's there to understand? Alina cuts her off. You married a complete stranger minutes after Papa's death, and you didn't even have the decency to be with us to mourn him. I haven't seen you in ages. I can see Natalia crumbling under her sister's accusations, tears welling in her eyes. Something protective and fierce rises in my chest. Before I can think better of it, I place a hand on Alina's arm, steering her towards a quieter corner of the room. Listen to me very carefully, I say, my voice low and intense. What happened to your father was tragic and awful, and your sister wanted more than anything to be with you to mourn him. But right now, there are forces at work that put your entire family in danger. It was my decision to keep Natalia away, to protect her, and by extension, you and your mother. Alina blinks, taken aback by my vehemence. What are you talking about? What danger? I clench my jaw, choosing my words carefully as I glance around to make sure we're not being overheard. Your uncle, Victor, he's not who you think he is. He's been using your family as a shield for his own criminal activities for years. That's ridiculous, Alina scoffs, but I can see doubt flickering in her eyes. Uncle Victor would never... He would, and he has, I interrupt. Why do you think he's here tonight, talking to known members of a rival organization? Wake up, Alina. Your sister needs you now more than ever. Guilt flashes across Alina's face, quickly replaced by determination. She turns to Natalia, who's been watching our exchange with wide, anxious eyes. Is this true? Are you in danger? Natalia hesitates, then nods slowly. It's complicated, Alina. But yes, I think I am. We all are. Alina's expression softens, and for a moment I see the sister Natalia's been missing these past months. Oh, Natalia, she sighs. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, Natalia says, her voice thick with emotion. But I couldn't risk putting you in danger too. Can you forgive me? The sisters embrace and I step back, giving them a moment of privacy. As I scan the room, I finally spot Governor Ivanov near the terrace doors. He looks nervous, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for someone. I hate to interrupt, I say, touching Natalia's elbow gently. But I need to speak with the governor. Will you be all right? Natalia nods, wiping away a stray tear. Go. Alina and I have a lot to catch up on. I press a kiss to her forehead, inhaling the sweet scent of her perfume. Be careful, I whisper against her skin. And stay away from your uncle. As I make my way across the crowded ballroom, I can feel eyes on me. The hairs on the back of my neck stand up, my instincts screaming danger. I quicken my pace, reaching the governor just as he's about to slip out onto the terrace. Pavel, I say, gripping his arm firmly. We need to talk. Now. The color drains from his face as he recognizes me. Luca, I wasn't expecting you tonight. I smile, all teeth and no warmth. Clearly. Somewhere more private, perhaps? Pavel nods jerkily, leading me through a hidden door and up a narrow staircase. We emerge in what can only be the master bedroom, all dark wood and opulent fabrics. As soon as the door clicks shut behind us, I drop all pretense of civility. In one fluid motion, I draw my gun and press the barrel against Pavel's chest. Where's my money, Governor? Pavel's eyes go wide with fear, his hands raised in surrender. Luca, please, you don't understand. Then enlighten me, I growl, pressing the gun harder against his sternum. It was Victor. Pavel gasps out, sweat beading on his brow. He warned me not to pay. Said if I did, he'd expose everything. He wants to lure you out, Luka. The rival organization, they're here tonight. They're going to... The bedroom door crashes open, cutting off Pavel's panicked confession. I whirl around, gun raised, just as a mountain of a man barrels towards me. I recognize him instantly. Sergei Volkov, no relation, known enforcer for the rival Mafia. I fire once, twice, but Sergei is on me before I can get off a third shot. We crash to the floor in a tangle of limbs, my gun skittering away across the polished hardwood. I hear Pavel's strangled cry, the sound of his footsteps as he flees the room. Sergei's meaty fist connects with my jaw, stars exploding behind my eyes. I taste blood, copper, and salt flooding my mouth. But the pain only sharpens my focus. I've been in worse scraps than this. I have to get out of this, get to Natalia and warn her before Victor can hurt her. Or worse.
Chapter 13. Natalia. The plush carpet of the guest room muffles our footsteps as Alina and I settle onto the edge of the bed. The room is cozy, all warm tones and soft fabrics, but the tension between us makes it feel claustrophobic. Alina's eyes, so like my own, bore into me with a mixture of hurt and confusion that makes my chest ache. For a moment, we sit in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy between us. I can hear the muffled sounds of the party downstairs, the laughter and music a stark contrast to the somber mood in this room. I fidget with the hem of my dress, trying to find the right words to explain the unexplainable. Alina breaks the silence first, her voice trembling slightly. You got married without even inviting us? And the timing? After everything with Dad? The hurt in her voice is like a knife to my heart. I sigh, running a hand through my carefully styled hair, feeling it coming loose from its elegant updo. I know it looks bad, I admit, finally meeting her gaze. It is bad, but I had my reasons, Alina. I swear, I trail off, the words sticking in my throat. How can I explain something I barely understand myself? I can't tell you right now. Alina's face softens slightly at my obvious distress, but I can see the hurt still lingering in the set of her jaw, the furrow of her brow. She looks away, her gaze falling on a framed photo of the governor's family on the nightstand. I still can't wrap my head around what happened to Dad, she says quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The rumors, I never thought they could be true. I never thought he would work with the mob like that. I nod, reaching out to take her hand. She doesn't pull away, which I count as a small victory. The warmth of her skin against mine is comforting, a reminder of the bond we've always shared. I know, I say, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. But I overheard something. I hesitate, weighing how much to reveal. The truth burns on my tongue, begging to be set free, but I know I have to be careful. The leader of the Mafia responsible said it was a mistake, an accident. They didn't mean to kill him that night. Alina's head snaps up, her eyes wide with shock. What? How do you know that? When did you... She cuts herself off, shaking her head as if to clear it. Natalia, what aren't you telling me? I open my mouth to respond, but no words come out. How can I explain the complex web of lies and half-truths I've become entangled in? How can I tell her about Luka, about the dangerous world I've been thrust into? Especially since he doesn't want her to know, and just telling her could put her into even more danger. Alina frowns, confusion clouding her features. How could a hit like that go so horribly wrong? She asks, her voice laced with skepticism. It doesn't make sense. Professional killers don't make mistakes like that. I bite my lip, the truth about Luka on the tip of my tongue. I want to tell her everything. About the arranged marriage, about Luka's true identity, about the danger we're all in. But before I can speak, the door swings open with enough force to make us both jump. Luka stands in the doorway, his imposing figure filling the frame. His expression is unreadable, but there's a tension in his shoulders that sets my nerves on edge. His eyes scan the room quickly before landing on me, and I can see something in his eyes. I don't know if it's relief or concern. Without a word, he strides into the room and grabs my wrist, his grip firm but not painful. The sudden contact sends a jolt of electricity through me, and I have to suppress a shiver. "We have to leave. Now," he says, his voice low but urgent. There's an edge to his tone that I've never heard before, and it sends a chill down my spine. I furrow my brow in confusion, looking between Luca and my sister. Alina has risen to her feet, her posture defensive. "What? Why?" I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Luca pulls me toward the door, his eyes flicking to Alina. "It's an emergency with my company." He lies smoothly, his face a mask of calm control. "Good night." Before Alina can protest, before I can say goodbye, we slip into the hallway. The sounds of the party drift up from below. Laughter, music, the clink of glasses, also at odds with the urgency radiating from Luca. Once we're alone, Luca turns to me, his grip still firm on my wrist. His eyes, usually so controlled, are blazing with an intensity that makes my breath catch. "How well do you know the governor's house?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. I blink, thrown by the question. "I've been coming here since I was a teenager," I reply, matching his hushed tone. My mind races, trying to understand what's happening. "But I only know the open areas, nothing private like the bedrooms. Luca, what's going on?" Luca's eyes flick toward the bustling party below, his jaw clenching. "Is there a back exit?" he asks, ignoring my question. "Why?" I ask, my heart pounding faster with each passing second. The fear in Luca's eyes, so foreign on his usually confident face, terrifies me more than anything else. "Luca, please, tell me what's happening." He leans closer, his breath hot against my ear. The familiar scent of his cologne, mixed with something metallic that I realize with a start must be blood, fills my senses. "One of the rival Mafia members attacked me," he says, his voice grim. "There's more of them in the party. We need to get out before it's too late." My breath catches in my throat, fear and adrenaline coursing through my veins. But beneath it all, there's a strange thrill, a realization that this, right here, is the real Luka Volkov. Not the polished businessman or even the dangerous Mafia boss, but a man fighting for survival. And he's chosen to fight alongside me. I nod, squeezing his hand. "Follow me," I whisper, leading him toward the garden exit I know well. We move as quickly as we dare, trying not to draw attention. I can feel the heat of Luca's body behind me, hear the controlled rhythm of his breathing. Every shadow makes me tense. Every laugh from a party guest below sends my heart racing. The garden is a maze of hedges and topiaries, moonlight casting eerie shadows across the manicured lawn. I lead Luca through the twists and turns, grateful for the countless summers I spent exploring this very maze as a teenager. Just as we near the gate, after weaving through the elaborate hedge maze, a shadow detaches itself from behind a bush. I barely have time to register the glint of metal in the moonlight before the attacker is upon us, knife gleaming in his hand. He goes for me first, perhaps seeing me as the easier target. I feel a searing pain across my arm as I stumble backward, losing my footing on the damp grass. I fall hard, the impact driving the air from my lungs. Through the ringing in my ears, I hear Luca roar, a sound of pure fury that sends chills down my spine. He tackles the attacker, the two of them grappling in a violent struggle that seems more animal than human. I push myself up, ignoring the sting of my scraped palms and the throbbing in my arm. I need to help, to do something, but I'm frozen in place, watching in horror as the fight unfolds. The sickening sound of metal slicing through flesh pierces the air. For a heart-stopping moment, I think it's all over. But then I see Luca stagger back, his hand pressed to his side where a dark stain is rapidly spreading across his white shirt. Despite the wound, Luca doesn't falter. With a final, brutal punch that seems to channel all his rage and fear, he sends the attacker crumpling to the ground. The man lies still, knocked out cold by the force of the blow. For a moment, Luca stands there, chest heaving, silhouetted against the moonlight like some avenging angel. Then, slowly, he turns to me. "Natalia," he says, his voice rough with pain. "Are you hurt?" He doesn't finish the sentence. I watch in horror as the color drains from his face, his hand still clutched to his side where the wound is. His knees buckle and he collapses to the ground. "Luca!" I scream, rushing to his side. My hands hover over him, unsure where to touch, what to do. "Oh God, Luca, stay with me, please." His eyes find mine, clouded with pain but still alert. "We need to move," he grits out. "More will be coming." I nod, forcing myself to focus. I tear a strip from the bottom of my dress, the sound of ripping fabric loud in the quiet garden. With shaking hands, I press the makeshift bandage against the wound in his side. Luca hisses in pain but doesn't pull away. "Can you stand?" I ask, my voice steadier than I feel. Luca nods, jaw clenched. With my help, he struggles to his feet, leaning heavily on me. We stumble toward the gate, every step sending fresh rivulets of blood soaking through the bandage. As we make our way to safety, my mind races with the implications of what just happened. The rival Mafia, the attack on Luca, the dangerous world I've been thrust into. It all swirls together in a dizzying mix of fear and adrenaline. But beneath it all, there's a growing certainty that I can't ignore. Despite the danger, despite the secrets and lies, I know now that I would do anything to protect Luca. The realization terrifies me almost as much as it thrills me. We reach the gate, and I fumble with the latch, my hands slick with Luca's blood. Finally, it gives way, and we stumble out onto the quiet street beyond. The normal world seems surreal after the violence we've just escaped. Cars are parked along the curb, streetlights cast pools of yellow light, and in the distance, I can hear the faint white noise of traffic. "My car," Luca pants, gesturing weakly down the street. "Black SUV. Keys, in my pocket." I nod, adjusting my grip on his waist. "Just a little further," I encourage, though whether I'm reassuring him or myself, I'm not sure. We make it to the car, and I help Luca into the passenger seat before running around to the driver's side. My hands shake as I start the engine, adrenaline making every movement feel jerky and uncoordinated. As we pull away from the curb, leaving the governor's mansion and its hidden dangers behind, I can't help but wonder what other secrets are waiting to be unveiled. And more importantly, how many more times will I have to choose between my old life and the dangerous, exhilarating world Luca has pulled me into? The night air rushing through the open window is cool against my skin, a relieving juxtaposition to the warmth of Luca's blood on my hands. I glance over at him, his face pale in the sickly glow of the passing streetlights. He's still conscious, his eyes fixed on me with an intensity that makes my heart race for reasons that are far from fear. Whatever comes next, I know one thing for certain. Nothing will ever be the same again. The woman who walked into that party earlier tonight is gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone willing to fight for what and who she wants. As we disappear into the Moscow night, I make a silent vow. I will protect Luca, just as he's protected me. I will uncover the truth about my father's death, about Victor's betrayal, about the dangerous world I've married into. And no matter what happens, I will not let this man I'm falling in love with slip away.
Chapter 14. Luca. The first thing I register as I claw my way back to consciousness is pain, a deep throbbing ache in my side that pulses with each breath. The second is the unmistakable scent of antiseptic and gauze. My eyes flutter open, squinting against the soft light filtering through heavy curtains. I'm in my own bed, I realize with a jolt of surprise. The familiar dark wood paneling and plush bedding, a stark contrast to my last memory of stumbling through moonlit gardens. Natalia's arm around my waist as we fled for our lives. Natalia. My gaze sweeps the room, landing on a figure curled up in the oversized armchair beside my bed. Even in the dim light, I'd recognize that vibrant auburn hair anywhere. Natalia is fast asleep, her chest rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm. She looks exhausted, dark circles shadowing her eyes. Her designer gown is rumpled and stained, a makeshift bandage wrapped around one slender arm, where she must have been injured during our escape. Despite her disheveled state, my breath catches at the sight of her. She looks like an avenging angel, fierce and beautiful even in repose. A faint smile cascades across my lips as I watch her sleep. For someone who claims to despise me, she certainly seems concerned for my safety, willing to go to great lengths to keep me alive. The thought warms something deep in my chest, a feeling I'm not quite ready to name. I can almost picture it, a future with her by my side, the two of us together, her fierce and stubborn pride a complement to my own tenacity. She would be an amazing mother. I shift slightly, trying to get a better look at her, and have to bite back a groan as pain lances through my side. The movement must have made some sound, though, because Natalia stirs, her eyes fluttering open. I quickly avert my gaze, not wanting her to catch me staring. "Luca?" Her voice is rough with sleep, but tinged with worry. "Are you awake?" I turn my head to meet her gaze, struck anew by the vivid green of her eyes. "I'm awake," I confirm, my own voice gravelly. "How long was I out?" Natalia sits up, running a hand through her tangled hair. "Almost 12 hours. The doctor said your body needed time to recover from the blood loss and trauma." My brow furrows as I try to piece together the fragments of memory. "Doctor? How did we get here?" "I drove as far away as I could, then used your phone to call your men," Natalia explains, leaning forward in her chair. "They brought us back here and summoned your house doctor. He patched you up and gave you something for the pain that knocked you right out." I nod slowly, impressed by her quick thinking. "Thank you, Natalia," I say, letting a hint of warmth creep into my voice. "That was smart thinking. Are you all right? You weren't hurt?" She shrugs, brushing off my concern. "Just a few scrapes. I'm fine. Thank you for protecting me." Her eyes narrow slightly as she studies me. "How are you feeling? You lost a lot of blood." "I've had worse," I assure her, even as I wince trying to sit up. Natalia is on her feet in an instant, her hands warm as she helps adjust my pillows. "Easy," she chides gently. "The doctor said you need to take it slow for a few days." I can't help but to smile. "Worried about me?" Natalia rolls her eyes, but I don't miss the faint blush that colors her cheeks. "Don't flatter yourself. I just don't want to have to explain to your men why their boss bled out in his own bed." Before I can respond, a knock at the door interrupts us. Dr. Petrov enters, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed and his white coat crisp despite the early hour. Mr. Volkov, you're awake," he says, striding to my bedside. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been stabbed," I deadpan, earning a soft snort of laughter from Natalia. Dr. Petrov's lips twitch in amusement as he begins examining my wound. "Well, that's to be expected. You're a lucky man, Mr. Volkov. The knife only cut through muscle. Nothing vital was damaged." I nod, relieved but unsurprised. It takes more than a lucky hit from some rival goon to take down Luka Volkov. The doctor finishes checking my bandages, apparently satisfied with what he finds. He turns to Natalia, who has been hovering anxiously nearby. "And how are you feeling this morning, Mrs. Volkov? Any nausea or dizziness?" Natalia shakes her head. "No, I'm feeling much better, thank you." Dr. Petrov nods approvingly. Good, good. And the twins are perfectly healthy. The ultrasound showed no signs of distress from last night's excitement." The world grinds to a halt. "Twins?" My head whips towards Natalia so fast I feel a twinge in my neck. Her face has gone pale, eyes wide with panic as they dart between me and the doctor. What? I manage to choke out, my mind reeling. The doctor's brow furrows in confusion. "The ultrasound you requested earlier," he says slowly, reaching into his bag to pull out a grainy black and white image. "Everything looks perfectly normal for twins at this stage of development." Natalia takes the offered paper with trembling hands, clutching it to her chest. Dr. Petrov glances between us, clearly sensing the tension that has suddenly filled the room. I'll leave you two to talk, he says, edging towards the door. Call if you need anything, Mr. Volkov. And congratulations. The door clicks shut behind him, leaving a deafening silence in his wake. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. I stare at Natalia, trying to process this bombshell. She refuses to meet my gaze, her eyes fixed firmly on the ultrasound in her white-knuckled grip. You're pregnant, I finally say, my voice flat. It's not a question. Natalia nods jerkily, still not looking at me. Yes. With twins. Another nod. And you weren't going to tell me. I can hear the anger building in my voice, a mix of hurt and confusion that I'm not equipped to deal with at all. Natalia's head snaps up at that, her eyes blazing. I was going to tell you, she insists. I wanted to wait for the right time. I wasn't even sure I was going to keep them at first. Her words hit me like a physical blow. The thought of her getting rid of our children, my children, makes something primal and possessive rear up inside me. And when exactly would the right time have been, I demand, struggling to keep my voice level. After they were born? When they started school? Natalia flinches at the acid in my tone. I don't know, she admits quietly. When I found out they were twins, I knew I couldn't go through with an abortion. It made it too real, and I realized that despite myself, I wanted them, but I didn't know how to tell you. This isn't... She trails off, gesturing vaguely between us. I understand what she means, even if I don't want to admit it. We're not a real couple. This was supposed to be a business arrangement, nothing more. A child, let alone two, changes everything. I take a deep breath, trying to rein in the mess of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Anger, fear, an unexpected surge of joy that I quickly tamp down. I need to think rationally about this. You're staying here for the pregnancy, I say firmly, my tone leaving no room for argument. The rival Mafia has seen your face. You won't be safe anywhere else. Natalia's eyes narrow. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself, she begins, but I cut her off with a sharp gesture. This isn't just about you anymore, I remind her, my gaze dropping pointedly to her stomach. Those are my children you're carrying, and they'll have enemies before they're even born. I will not risk their safety, or yours for that matter. For a moment I think she's going to argue. I can see the stubborn set of her jaw, the fire in her eyes that I usually find so captivating, and at times like this absolutely infuriating. But then her shoulders slump slightly, the fight draining out of her all at once. Fine, she says quietly. You're right. It's not safe for me to be alone right now. I nod, relief washing over me. Good. I'll have Alexei prepare a suite for you. Anything you need, just ask. Natalia stands, smoothing down her ruined gown. I should go clean up, she murmurs, not quite meeting my eyes. Get some rest, Luca. I'll check on you later. As she turns to leave, something possessive and desperate seizes me. Before I can think better of it, I reach out and catch her wrist. Natalia tenses at the contact but doesn't pull away. Wait, I say, my voice low and rough. I tug gently, urging her closer until she's standing at the edge of the bed. My free hand comes up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing over the delicate curve of her cheekbone. Isn't it beautiful? I murmur, unable to keep a hint of awe from my voice. My doting wife, bringing not just one but two babies into the world. Natalia tries to pull back, a mix of emotions flashing across her face too quickly for me to decipher. But I tighten my grip on her wrist, holding her in place. I want to thank you, I tell her, my gaze locked on hers, for saving me, for carrying our children, for being braver than I ever gave you credit for. Before she can respond, I pull her down and capture her lips in a kiss. Natalia makes a small sound of surprise against my mouth, her free hand coming up to brace against my chest. For a heartbeat, I think she's going to push me away. But then she melts into the kiss with a soft sigh that sends heat coursing through my veins. I deepen the kiss, my tongue teasing the seam of her lips until she parts them with a quiet moan. My hand slides from her cheek to tangle in her hair, holding her close as I pour every ounce of gratitude and desire I feel into the kiss. Natalia responds with equal fervor, her fingers curling into the fabric of my shirt. This is it, I realize. She is mine. My wife, the mother of my children, my everything. And I'm going to show her exactly what that means in my world, one way or another. The following scene is too spicy to be included in this version. You can find the unedited version on bellakingbooks.com or by following the link in the video description. Your book will now continue. Chapter 16. Luca. The soft glow of the computer screen casts eerie shadows across my office as I scan through financial reports. 2 weeks have passed since the incident at the governor's mansion, and an unsettling quiet has settled over my operations. It's the kind of silence that makes my teeth itch, my instincts screaming that something is coming, that I'm missing something crucial. I rub my eyes, fatigue weighing heavily on me. The wound in my side has mostly healed, but the memory of that night, the pain, the fear, the revelation about Natalia's pregnancy, still lingers. So much has changed in such a short time, and I'm still struggling to find my footing in this new reality. What I do know is this much. I have more to lose than ever, and I'm going to make sure that nothing happens to my wife and children, which is why I'm burning the midnight oil when I should be sleeping and healing. A sharp knock at the door pulls me from my thoughts. "Come in," I call out, straightening in my chair. Alexei, my most trusted lieutenant, enters with a file tucked under his arm. His face is carefully neutral, but I can see the tension in the set of his shoulders. Whatever news he brings, it's not good. "Report," I command, gesturing for him to sit. Alexei remains standing, his posture rigid. "We've located Victor, boss," he says without preamble. "He's in Seattle." I lean back in my chair, processing this information. Victor Orlov, Natalia's uncle and the man responsible for the hit on her father. The puppet master pulling strings from the shadows. Seattle? What's he doing there? Officially, he's there on business for his coffee company, Alexei explains, handing me the file. But our sources indicate it's just a front for money laundering. I flip through the documents, my jaw clenching as I take in the details. Bank statements, travel records, surveillance photos, all pointing to a massive operation that goes far beyond a simple coffee business. "How long has he been there?" I ask, my mind already racing with possibilities. "About a week," Alexei replies. "He's scheduled to return to Moscow in 3 days." I nod, closing the file with a sharp snap. "Good work. Keep monitoring his movements. I want to know every step he takes, every person he meets with." Alexei hesitates, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "Boss, there's something else. We've intercepted some chatter. It seems Victor might be looking for his niece. He has something planned for Mrs. Volkova." My blood runs cold at the mention of Natalia. Instinctively, my hand goes to the healing wound on my side, a reminder of how close I came to losing everything. "What kind of something?" I demand, my voice low and dangerous. "We're not sure yet," Alexei admits. "But whatever it is, he's pulling back on other business to concentrate on it. Has some of the rival families nervous?" I stand abruptly, needing to move, to do something to quell the restless energy suddenly coursing through me. "Double the security detail on the house," I order, pacing the length of my office. "I want eyes on Natalia at all times. And get me everything you can on Victor's operation in Seattle. Bank records, property deeds, shell companies, all of it." Alexei nods, already turning to carry out my orders. Natalia. My wife, the mother of my unborn children. The woman who has somehow wormed her way past all my defenses, awakening feelings I thought long dead. She deserves to know the truth about her uncle, about the danger we're all in. But the thought of causing her any more pain, of potentially harming the twins with the stress of this revelation, it makes something twist painfully in my chest. As the door closes behind Alexei, I sink back into my chair with a heavy sigh. My gaze drifts to the framed photo on my desk. A candid shot of Natalia laughing at something off camera, her eyes sparkling with joy. It was taken just a few days ago, at a moment when she thought I wasn't looking. For some odd reason I can't quite name, I was drawn to take the photo and have it printed, so I could remember her like this forever. The sight of it now sends a pang through my heart. How can I tell her that the uncle she loves, the man she trusts, is responsible for so much pain and destruction? How can I shatter her world yet again? With another sigh, I push away from my desk. Sitting here brooding won't solve anything. I need to see Natalia, to remind myself of what I'm fighting for. I make my way downstairs, my footsteps echoing in the cavernous halls of the mansion. As I approach the newly designated nursery, I hear Natalia's voice drifting through the partially open door. She's humming softly, an old Russian lullaby that tugs at some long-buried memory. I pause in the doorway, taking in the scene before me. The room has been transformed in the past 2 weeks, going from a bland guest room to a warm, inviting space filled with all the essentials for our coming children. A beautiful crib stands against one wall, flanked by matching dressers. Shelves line another wall, already filled with books and stuffed animals. In the center of it all is Natalia, perched on a rocking chair with a sketch pad in her lap. She's so engrossed in her work that she doesn't notice me at first. I take the opportunity to study her, drinking in every detail. Her brow is furrowed in concentration, her bottom lip caught between her teeth as she focuses on her sketch. The late afternoon sunlight streaming through the window catches in her auburn hair, setting it ablaze with golden highlights. She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. As if sensing my presence, Natalia looks up. Her face breaks into a radiant smile that never fails to take my breath away. "Luca!" she exclaims, setting aside her sketch pad and rising to greet me. "Come look at what I've been working on." I cross the room to her, unable to resist pulling her into my arms for a quick kiss. She melts against me, her body fitting perfectly against mine. When we part, her cheeks are flushed and her eyes are bright with excitement. "Look," she says, retrieving her sketch pad and holding it up for me to see. "I've been designing some outfits for the twins. What do you think?" I examine the sketches, impressed as always by Natalia's talent. The designs are beautiful, tiny dresses and suits that somehow manage to be both whimsical and elegant. "They're perfect," I tell her honestly. "Our children will be the best dressed in all of Moscow." Natalia beams at the praise, but then her smile falters slightly. A shadow passes over her face, and I tense instinctively, sensing the shift in her mood. "What is it?" I ask, cupping her cheek gently. "What's wrong?" She leans into my touch, her eyes closing briefly. "It's nothing, really," she says with a small shake of her head. I'm worried about how my family will react to all of this. The marriage, the babies. It's all happening so fast." I swallow hard, guilt gnawing at my insides. If only she knew the full truth, how much danger her family is really in. "They'll come around," I say, trying to inject confidence into my voice. "How could they not love these little ones?" Natalia's hand drifts to her stomach, still flat but carrying our precious cargo. "I wish Uncle Victor were here," she says softly. "He'd be so happy about the twins. He always said I'd make a wonderful mother someday." The mention of Victor's name is like a bucket of ice water down my spine. I struggle to keep my expression neutral as I carefully ask, "Do you know where Victor is now? Have you spoken to him recently?" Natalia shakes her head. "Not directly, but Alina mentioned he's in the US on business. Something about expanding the coffee company, I think." I nod, my mind racing. This could be the opening I need, a way to gather more information without arousing suspicion. "You should reach out to him," I suggest, hating myself even as the words leave my mouth. "Invite him over when he returns to Moscow. I'm sure he'd love to hear about the twins from you directly." Natalia's face lights up at the idea, and I feel like the lowest form of scum. I'm using her love for her uncle, her excitement about our children, as bait in a trap. But if she understood what Victor was really capable of, what he's done, Maybe she'd see things differently. Do you really think so? She asks, hope shining in her eyes. You wouldn't mind. I force a smile, pushing down the guilt threatening to choke me. Of course not. He's your family, and family is important. Natalia throws her arms around me, hugging me tightly. Thank you, Luca, she murmurs against my chest. You don't know how much this means to me. As I hold her close, breathing in the sweet floral scent of her hair, the possibility that I'm making a terrible mistake creeps into my mind like a winter frost. But what choice do I have? Victor is a threat that needs to be eliminated, for Natalia's safety as much as my own. And if using the twins as bait is what it takes to draw him out, well, I've done far worse things in the name of protecting what's mine. Why don't you call him now? I suggest, pulling back slightly to look at Natalia. I'm sure he'd love to hear your voice. Natalia nods eagerly, already reaching for her phone. As she dials, I step back, giving her some privacy for the conversation. But I remain in the doorway, watching as she paces the nursery, one hand resting protectively on her stomach as she talks animatedly to her uncle. The sight of her, so happy and unaware of the danger lurking just beyond these walls, makes something twist painfully in my chest. I've spent my entire life in a world of violence and betrayal, never allowing myself to form attachments or trust anyone completely. But Natalia, she's changed everything. For the first time in years, I have something, someone, worth fighting for, worth dying for if necessary, and I'll be damned if I let Victor or anyone else threaten that. As Natalia ends the call, turning to me with a beaming smile, I make a silent vow. I will protect her and our children, no matter the cost, even if it means becoming the monster I've always tried to keep hidden from her. Because in the end, that's what love is, isn't it? Sacrifice, protection, doing whatever it takes to keep your family safe. And Natalia Volkova is my family now. God help anyone who tries to come between us.
Chapter 17. Natalia. The gentle whir of the ultrasound machine fills Dr. Petrov's examination room as he moves the wand across my still flat stomach. Luca stands beside me, his large hand enveloping mine, thumb stroking reassuringly across my knuckles. The screen shows grainy black and white images that I'm still learning to decipher, but I can make out two distinct shapes now. Our babies are growing stronger every day. Ah, there we are, Dr. Petrov says, his expression warm as he adjusts the angle slightly. Would you like to know the sexes? My breath catches in my throat as I look up at Luca. His blue eyes meet mine, and I see my own excitement reflected there. We hadn't discussed whether we wanted to know, but in this moment, the desire to find out everything about our children is overwhelming. Yes, I whisper, squeezing Luca's hand. Please tell us. The doctor's smile widens as he points to the screen. You're having one of each, a boy and a girl. Joy explodes in my chest like fireworks. A boy and a girl, perfect mirrors of Luca and me, a perfect balance. I turn to look at my husband, finding him grinning ear to ear, an expression of pure happiness that transforms his usually stern features. One of each, Luca repeats, his voice rough with emotion. He leans down to press a kiss to my forehead, his lips lingering against my skin. You've given me everything, Moya Lyubov. Dr. Petrov prints several copies of the ultrasound images before leaving us alone. I sit up on the examination table, my hand instinctively going to my stomach as I look at the pictures. Our children, our son and daughter, captured in grainy black and white. We should start thinking about names, I say, tracing the outline of our babies with my finger. Something strong for our little boy. Something beautiful for our girl. Luca helps me down from the table, his hands lingering on my waist. What about Vladimir for the boy? He suggests, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Or better yet, Boris? I wrinkle my nose, playing along. Absolutely not. And I suppose you want to name our daughter Olga or Gertrude? What's wrong with those names? Luca protests, pulling me closer. They're classic Russian names, strong and... Horrible. I cut him off, laughing. Our children will thank me for saving them from your terrible taste. Luca's chest rumbles with laughter, the sound warming me from the inside out. These moments of lightness and joy are becoming more frequent between us, the walls we built around our hearts crumbling bit by bit. What about Igor for the boy? I suggest softly, watching Luca's face carefully. After my father? Luca's expression softens, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. I think that would be perfect, he says quietly. Igor Lukovich Volkov. The use of his patronymic brings fresh tears to my eyes. Our son will carry both our father's names, a bridge between our families, a symbol of hope for the future. And for our daughter? Luca asks, his thumb brushing away a stray tear. I consider for a moment thinking of all the strong women in our lives. What about Nadezhda? I suggest. It means hope in Russian. That's what she is to me. Hope for a better future for all of us. Nadezhda, Luca repeats, testing the name on his tongue. It's beautiful, like her mother. Before I can respond, Luca's phone buzzes in his pocket. His expression shifts subtly as he checks the screen. The carefree joy of moments ago replaced by his usual mask of control. I need to take this, he says, pressing a quick kiss to my lips. Why don't you head back to the nursery? I'll join you when I'm done. I nod, understanding that some parts of his life will always be separate from me. As he strides away, already speaking rapid Russian into his phone, I pull out my own device. My fingers hover over Victor's contact for a moment before I type out a message. Uncle Victor, I have wonderful news. We're having twins, a boy and a girl. I wish you were here to celebrate with us. His response comes quickly, making me smile. My darling niece, I always knew you'd have a big, beautiful family. You were meant to be a mother. Warmth spreads through my chest at his words. Despite everything that's happened, despite the distance that's grown between our families, Uncle Victor has always been there for me. When will you be back in Moscow? I type. Luca and I would love to have you over for dinner. There's so much to catch up on. Soon, my dear, he replies. Very soon. And I'd be delighted to join you both for dinner when I return. I'm looking forward to meeting this husband of yours properly. Encouraged by this success, I open a new message, this time to my mother and sister. My heart pounds as I compose the text, knowing how much rides on their response. Mama, Alina, I have news I'd like to share with you both. Please come for dinner. I miss you, and there's so much I need to tell you. I set my phone down on the bedside table, my hand drifting back to my stomach. Will they come? Will they be happy about the babies? Or will this just drive another wedge between us? And how will they react to seeing Luca again, now that we're truly building a life together? The nursery catches my eye through the open door. The beautiful space we've created for our children, filled with love and hope and possibilities. A flash of uncertainty makes my chest tight. I want my children to know their family, all of it. But with so many secrets and lies between us, is that even possible? My phone buzzes, making me jump. With trembling fingers, I reach for it, both eager and afraid to see the response. But before I can check, a shadow falls across the doorway. Luca stands there, his expression unreadable as he watches me. Has he been there long? Did he see me texting Victor? And why does the thought fill me with such unease? Everything okay? I ask, trying to keep my voice light. Luca's eyes soften as they meet mine, but there's something else there too. Something dark and worried that makes my heart skip a beat. Everything's fine, darling, he says, crossing the room to pull me into his arms. Just business. I lean into his embrace, breathing in his familiar scent. But I can't shake the feeling that something is wrong, that there are storm clouds gathering on our horizon. For now, though, I push those thoughts aside. Today should be about joy, about Igor and Nadezhda, about the family we're building together. Tomorrow will bring what it brings. But as I rest my head against Luca's chest, listening to his steady heartbeat, I can't help but wonder, What price will we pay for this happiness? And when our two worlds inevitably collide, will our love be strong enough to weather the storm?
Chapter 18. Luca. The clink of fine china and silverware echoes through the dining room as my staff serves the first course. I sit at the head of the massive oak table, acutely aware of Elena Orlova's frosty gaze tracking my every movement. She hasn't spoken more than a handful of words since arriving with Alina, but her disapproval radiates like winter wind off the Volga. Natalia sits to my right, her eyes bright but tainted with something neither of us can get rid of. Her hand occasionally finds mine under the table, squeezing gently when her mother's stares become particularly pointed. The gesture grounds me, reminding me why I'm subjecting myself to this excruciating exercise in familial diplomacy. The borscht is excellent, I offer, breaking another stretch of uncomfortable silence. Natalia has been teaching our chef some traditional recipes. Has she? Elena's voice could freeze hell itself. Her spoon clinks against her bowl with precise, measured movements. How domestic. I remember when my daughter had bigger ambitions than playing house. Natalia tenses beside me. Mama, please. No. Elena cuts her off, setting down her spoon with a sharp click that makes both Alina and Natalia flinch. I've held my tongue long enough. I don't trust a man who marries my daughter in secret, who sweeps in out of nowhere and turns her whole life upside down, making her give up so much for so little. I take a deep breath, forcing myself to remain calm. Getting defensive will only make things worse. I understand why you feel that way, I say, keeping my voice sincere and steady. We kept things quiet because at the time there were threats. I needed to keep Natalia safe, and the fewer people who knew, the better. I glance at my wife, finding strength in her grateful smile, then back to her mother. But I'm sorry that we hurt you in the process. That was never my intention. Elena shakes her head, her carefully styled silver blonde hair catching the light from the crystal chandelier above. You talk about protection, about safety. But where was that protection when my husband was killed? When my family was torn apart? She laughs bitterly, the sound like breaking glass. It's bad enough I stumbled upon Igor's safe, found those documents about Kirill Baranov. I couldn't even bring myself to look at them properly. I knew they'd be incriminating. My blood runs cold at her words. Igor's safe? Documents about Kirill? Something isn't adding up. I know for a fact that Igor wasn't the one with ties to Kirill. That was all Victor. Could Elena have discovered something without realizing its significance? If I could only find out what they say. Before I can pursue this thread, Natalia's hand finds mine again. Her palm is warm against my skin, trembling slightly. Mama, she says softly, we have something to tell you. She looks at me and I nod encouragingly. I'm pregnant. With twins. The silence that follows is deafening. I can hear the tick of the antique grandfather clock in the corner, counting off endless seconds. Alina is the first to react, her eyes lighting up with pure joy. Twins? She exclaims, practically bouncing in her seat. The fine crystal glasses rattle as she claps her hands together in excitement. Oh my God, I'm going to be an aunt. This is amazing. When are you due? Do you know what you're having? Have you picked names? I have a few suggestions. Her rapid-fire questions break some of the tension, and for a moment, I see a glimmer of the close-knit family Natalia has told me about. But Elena remains still, tears welling in her eyes as she stares at her daughter. Excuse me, she says abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor as she rises. I need some air. Natalia follows her mother onto the terrace, the French doors closing softly behind them. Through the glass panes, I watch as they talk, their silhouettes outlined against the setting sun. Natalia gestures animatedly while Elena stands rigid, her arms crossed tight over her chest. She'll come around, Alina says quietly, drawing my attention back to the table. It's been hard, you know? After Papa... She trails off, twisting her napkin in her lap. Everything is just changing so fast. I open my mouth to respond, but movement in the doorway catches my eye. Dmitri, one of my most trusted men, hovers there with an urgent expression. I excuse myself from the table and join him in the hallway. Victor's back in Moscow, he reports in a low voice. His flight just landed at Sheremetyevo 20 minutes ago. Do we move forward with the hit? My eyes flick to Natalia on the terrace. Even from here, I can see the tension in her shoulders as she pleads with her mother. The timing couldn't be worse. Not now, I reply, keeping my voice down. Wait, he'll fall into our trap soon enough. When Natalia and Elena return, it's clear they've both been crying. Elena's makeup is slightly smudged, and Natalia's eyes are rimmed with red. Neither looks happy with how the conversation went, and the tension only ratchets up further as the night wears on. The rest of dinner passes in a blur of forced pleasantries and careful conversation. Finally, mercifully, Elena and Alina take their leave. As soon as the door closes behind them, Natalia collapses into my arms. I hold her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, jasmine and something uniquely her, as she buries her face in my chest. I knew she'd react like that, she murmurs, her words muffled against my shirt. I just wished she'd prove me wrong. Just this once, I wanted things to be uncomplicated, mother and daughter like before. I stroke her back soothingly, feeling the fine tremors running through her body. I know it hurts, I tell her, but in a way, you're lucky. You have a family who cares enough to worry, to want what's best for you. Natalia pulls back slightly, studying my face. Her hand comes up to trace the line of my jaw, featherlight. What happened to your parents, Luca? You never talk about them. The question sends a familiar ache through my chest. I consider deflecting, but Natalia deserves the truth, or at least part of it. They were murdered, I say quietly, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. By a rival organization. I was 16 years old when it happened. Overnight I went from a boy to a man. Natalia's eyes fill with fresh tears. Her hand comes up to cup my cheek, her touch infinitely gentle. I'm so sorry, she whispers. Then, after a moment, I'm scared, Luca, about bringing the twins into this world. Your world. I tilt her chin up, making her meet my gaze. They'll be fine, I assure her with a conviction I wish I felt, because we're going to be great parents. I promise you they won't have any involvement in the Mafia world. They'll be safe, protected, happy. How can you be sure? She asks, vulnerability clear in her voice. Because I will burn the world to the ground before I let anyone hurt them, I vow. Or you. Before she can voice more doubts, I press my lips into hers, kissing her deeply. The following scene is too spicy to be included in this version. You can find the unedited version on bellakingbooks.com or by following the link in the video description. Your book will now continue.
Chapter 19. Natalia. The next afternoon finds me at the kitchen table, surrounded by sketches for the twins' nursery. Sunlight streams through the windows, warming my skin as I work on designs for matching cribs. The house is quiet with Luca away on business. Something about meetings that would keep him occupied all day. It's rare for me to have this much time alone with my thoughts anymore. My hand drifts to my stomach as I sketch, imagining the lives growing within. Will they have Luca's eyes? My smile? The thought fills me with a mixture of joy and trepidation. What kind of world are we bringing them into? My phone buzzes, interrupting my musings. A text from Uncle Victor lights up the screen. Join us for dinner tonight, my dear. Your mother and Alina will be there. Time to bring this family back together. My heart skips at the thought. Could this be the chance I've been waiting for? Victor has always been the peacemaker in our family, the one person who could smooth over any conflict with his warm presence and understanding nature. Another message follows quickly. I've missed you. Let me help make things right. Tears blur my vision as I read his words. Despite everything that's happened, despite the distance that's grown between us all, Uncle Victor has always been there for me. From childhood scraped knees to teenage heartbreaks, he knew exactly what to say to make things better. I glance at the clock, considering my options. Luca won't be back until late. His meetings often stretch well into the evening. My finger hovers over his contact, instinct urging me to seek his protection, his guidance. But something stops me. When did I become this person? This woman who needs her husband's permission to see her own family? I'm still Natalia Orlova, successful designer, strong-willed businesswoman. I can't keep hiding behind Luca's strength. This is my family, my chance to repair these broken bonds before the twins arrive. Decision made, I type out a quick reply. I'll be there. Thank you, Uncle Victor. His response comes instantly. Wonderful. Come at 7. Just like old times. A smile tugs at my lips as memories flood back. Family dinners at Victor's house, laughter echoing through the halls, the sense of belonging and safety I always felt there. Maybe this is exactly what we need. A return to simpler times, before death and secrets tore us apart. I gather my things, a spark of excitement building in my chest. This feels right. Taking control of my own destiny instead of letting fear rule my life. I may be Luca's wife now, carrying his children, but I'm still my own person. Still capable of handling family matters without running to him for every little thing. As I check my appearance in the hall mirror, my hand drifts again to my stomach. Still flat, but knowing our twins are growing there fills me with strength and purpose. I want them to know their family, all of it. To have the warmth and love I grew up with, not just Luca's wealth and protection. The drive to Victor's house is familiar, muscle memory guiding me through Moscow's busy streets. Each turn brings back memories. Ice cream stops after school, shopping trips with Mama, countless family celebrations. By the time I pull up to the grand estate, my heart is light with hope. This is it. A chance to bridge the gap between my old life and new. To prove to myself and everyone else that I can navigate both worlds. That I don't need Luca's constant protection to survive. I travel with a smile, my heart light and my spirits high. I don't even notice the little rain cloud drifting by, or the way the sun doesn't feel warm on my skin even though it's shining bright. Chapter 20. Natalia. The setting sun bleeds red across the Moscow sky as I pull up to the wrought iron gates of Victor's estate. The massive gates stand open, unusual for this time of day, their ornate scrollwork casting spiderweb shadows across my windshield. A chill runs through me despite the warmth of the late summer evening. Something feels wrong. The circular driveway stretches before me, empty of the usual fleet of luxury vehicles that marks a family gathering. No security patrol in sight. No staff bustling about. Even Victor's prized German shepherds, usually prowling the grounds, are conspicuously absent. The sprawling mansion looms against the crimson sky, dark and forbidding where it should be warm and inviting. My hands tighten on the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white. The crunch of gravel under my tires seems unnaturally loud in the eerie stillness. Memories flash unbidden. Countless family dinners, holiday celebrations, the sound of laughter echoing through halls that now stand silent and dark. The contrast makes my stomach churn. The manicured gardens that Victor tends with such obsessive pride seem neglected, though it's only been days since I last saw them. The carefully shaped topiaries cast twisted shadows in the dying light, their familiar forms transformed into grotesque figures that seem to reach for my car with gnarled branches. A flutter of movement from one of the darkened upstairs windows catches my eye, but when I look again, there's nothing there. Just blackness where warm light should be spilling out. My heart pounds against my ribs as instinct screams at me to leave. With trembling fingers, I retrieve my phone from my purse. Victor's contact photo smiling up at me from the screen. A snapshot from happier times. The call goes straight to voicemail. His familiar warm greeting now carrying an undertone that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Hello, you've reached Victor Orlov. Leave a message and I'll call you back soon, Detka. Detka. His pet name for me since childhood. Why does it sound so wrong now? I end the call without leaving a message, my teeth worrying my lower lip. Almost unconsciously, my fingers find Luca's contact, my protector, my rock. Just the sight of his name makes me feel safer. One call and he'd be here. His strong presence driving away this nameless dread that settled over me. The twins move in my womb as if sensing my unease. I press a hand to my stomach, trying to calm them and myself. "It's okay," I whisper. "Everything's fine. This is Uncle Victor's house. We're safe here." But the words ring hollow, even to my own ears. My finger hovers over the call button. Pride wars with instinct. Do I admit I need Luca's help for a simple family dinner? What happened to proving I can handle things on my own? Decisively, I hit the call button, listening to my phone ring once, then twice. Before it can connect, movement catches my eye. A figure materializes from the lengthening shadows beside my car. Anton, Victor's assistant. But like everything else about this evening, something's wrong. His usually immaculate appearance is disheveled, tie askew, a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead despite the cooling air. The smile he gives me as he approaches my window is more grimace than greeting, his eyes cold and calculating where they've always been warm and deferential. "Mrs. Volkova," he says smoothly, though there's an edge to his voice I've never heard before. Victor's relocated everyone to his private resort outside of Moscow, the one in Zavidovo. My stomach drops at his words. Every cell in my body screams danger. Zavidovo? The exclusive resort town is nearly an hour away through dense forest. Victor hadn't mentioned anything about changing locations. "I can drive myself. I'll meet you there." I try to keep my voice steady, casual, but fear makes it tremble. Anton's polite facade cracks for just a moment, revealing something dark and predatory beneath. His next words drop all pretense of civility. "No," he says firmly, voice hard as steel. "You're coming with me. The boss's orders." Before I can react, before I can scream or fight or finish the call to Luca, his hand shoots through my half-open window like a striking snake. My phone is torn from my grip. The crack of it hitting the pavement seems to echo in the unnatural silence, the screen shattering like my last hope of escape. "The boss?" The words catch in my throat as realization dawns. In all the years I've known him, Anton has never referred to Victor that way, has never dropped his careful, respectful demeanor, has never shown this streak of casual cruelty. His hand clamps around my arm with bruising force, yanking me from the car. I struggle, but pregnancy has made me slower, more vulnerable. He drags me toward a black limousine I hadn't noticed before, its tinted windows revealing nothing of what or who waits inside. The back door swings open with a soft click that seems to seal my fate. My heart stutters to a stop as I see who sits within, bathed in the blood-red light of sunset. Victor. But not the uncle who taught me to ride a bike, who came to every dance recital, who dried my tears after Papa died. This is someone else entirely. A stranger wearing my beloved uncle's face. His smile is cold, predatory, his eyes holding none of the warmth I remember. "Hello, Natalia," he says softly, the familiar endearment twisted into something threatening. "We've been waiting for you, Detka." In that moment, I know with bone-deep certainty that I should have never left the comfort of my husband's arms.
Chapter 21. Luca. The abandoned warehouse looms in Moscow's industrial district, its rusted walls stained with decades of neglect. Water drips somewhere in the darkness, each drop echoing like a metronome counting down time I don't have. The air reeks of mildew and something metallic, fresh blood mixing with old rust. My footsteps echo against bare concrete as I stride in, the Italian leather of my shoes too fine for this decay. My men stand at attention around a metal chair, their weapons drawn and ready. The weak light filtering through grimy windows glints off gun barrels and sharp eyes trained on our guest, but my mind keeps drifting elsewhere, to Natalia, to our unborn children. I pull out my phone for the dozenth time, scowling at the lack of reception. No messages, no missed calls, nothing. These thick concrete walls block all signals, a feature that usually works in my favor during interrogations. Today it just feeds the unease gnawing at my gut. Something isn't right. I can feel it in my bones, the same instinct that's kept me alive all these years screaming that I'm missing something crucial. Pushing the thought aside, I pocket the phone and turn my attention to the man slumped in the chair. His expensive suit is ruined, dark patches spreading across the fine wool. Blood drips steadily from his split lip onto his collar, but his eyes still burn with defiance as he glares up at me. "I've got nothing to say," he spits, fresh blood spattering the concrete between us. His Russian is perfect, but there's an accent he can't quite hide. Eastern Territories, Victor's usual recruiting ground. I take my time cracking my knuckles, the sharp pops echoing in the cavernous space. My men shift slightly, recognizing the tell. They know what comes next. Everyone has something to say. Eventually. The first blow lands precisely. Years of experience have taught me exactly where to hit for maximum impact with minimum lasting damage. Kidney, solar plexus, jaw. Each strike carefully placed, designed to break his resolve without breaking him permanently. Not yet. He grunts with each impact but maintains his silence. Impressive, really. Most men would have broken by now. But I can see his resolve wavering, the defiance in his eyes giving way to something more primal. Fear. All right, he finally mutters, spitting blood onto the floor. His breath comes in wet, painful hitches. Victor, he's not just working with the Mafia. He's the leader of it. Victor is the head of the rival organization. The words hit me like a physical blow. I grab his collar, yanking him forward until we're face to face. My fingers dig into the expensive fabric, knuckles white with tension. "What?" He coughs, pain twisting his features. Blood flecks his lips as he speaks. Victor. He's the one who put the hit on his brother Igor. Igor figured it out, and Victor made sure he wouldn't live to tell anyone. Changed hotels last minute. Knew you were coming for him. It's been Victor all this time. My world tilts on its axis. The iron taste of blood fills my mouth. I've bitten the inside of my cheek without realizing it. The man I thought was merely a manipulative opportunist has been orchestrating everything from the shadows. The hit on Igor, the death of my parents, all the seemingly random attacks that have plagued my organization. Years of violence and death all leading back to one man. And Natalia? The name comes out as a growl, my grip tightening on his collar until he chokes. The rival's smile is ghastly, teeth stained red in the dim light. He has no issue using his family as bait. Your wife's pregnancy? Best way to lure you in. He's already a step ahead of you. Ice floods my veins at his words. As if summoned by them, my phone buzzes in my pocket, the vibration unnaturally loud in the tense silence. A single voice message. From Natalia. My hands are steady as I press play, but my heart pounds against my ribs as I hear her voice, followed by the conversation with Victor's assistant. The words, "taking her to Zavidovo," echo in the cavernous space. Panic surges through me, hot and foreign. I haven't felt true fear since I was 16, watching my parents bleed out on our kitchen floor. "Handle him," I bark at my men, already moving toward the exit. Fresh blood stains my white shirt. Natalia's going to be annoyed. She just had this one custom made. The thought sends another spike of fear through me. And get me reinforcements. Now. I burst through the warehouse doors into the fading daylight, my mind racing. Time is running out. Victor's trap is already closing around Natalia, around our children. As I stride toward my car, I pull out my phone again, scrolling through contacts until I reach one name, a number I swore I'd never call. My finger hovers over it as I weigh the cost. Some debts are too steep to repay, but with Natalia's life at stake.
Chapter 22. Natalia. The black leather interior of the limousine seems to close in around me as my mind races, fragments of memory clicking into place like tumblers in a lock. Victor's odd behavior at Isla Miramar, his last-minute hotel switch, the way he insisted we take his suite. A suite meant for his own family, a suite that put Papa directly in Luca's path. The realization hits me with such force that I can barely breathe. My hands instinctively go to my stomach, protective of the twins growing within as I stare at the man across from me. The uncle who taught me to ride a bike, who came to every dance recital, who dried my tears after my first heartbreak. A stranger wearing a familiar face. "You're the leader of the Baranov Bratva, aren't you?" My voice trembles, but I force the words out. "You go by Kirill Baranov." The name tastes like poison on my tongue. "Your assistant claimed to have caught Papa dealing with you, but it was all a lie, wasn't it? Just rumors to make him take the fall so no one would suspect the truth." The Moscow streetlights flashing past the tinted windows cast alternating shadows across Victor's face as he regards me. His smile, once so warm and comforting, now sends chills down my spine. In the dim interior of the car, his eyes glint with cold amusement, like a cat watching a wounded bird try and fail to fly away. "You've always been the smartest in our family, Natalia," he says, his tone almost proud. "I'm impressed. It took your father much longer to piece it together." The casual mention of Papa makes my heart stutter. "So you're the one," I whisper, bile rising in my throat. "You put the hit on my father." "It's true." Victor leans back in his seat, adjusting his perfectly pressed suit cuffs with practiced nonchalance. The gesture is so familiar it makes my chest ache. How many times had I watched him do the same thing at family dinners? Igor was the only one who discovered the truth about me. I've done a fantastic job hiding my identity for the past 20 years. His expression darkens slightly. He should have stuck with me, his own brother, instead of running to the Volkov syndicate for protection. But no. Victor shakes his head as if disappointed by a child's poor decision. He made his choice. The twins flutter anxiously in my womb, picking up on my distress. I press my hand more firmly against them, trying to steady myself. The leather seat beneath me feels suddenly unstable, the world tilting on its axis. "Unfortunately," Victor continues, his voice distant and cold, "Igor had what was coming to him." His eyes fix on my protective gesture, his lip curling slightly. "But you, Natalia, you did what you had to do to survive. Marrying Luca, I get that? But getting pregnant with his children?" He clicks his tongue in disapproval. "That was a foolish mistake. I'm disappointed in you." A wave of nausea rolls over me that has nothing to do with pregnancy. This can't be happening. This isn't the man who helped raise me, who protected me, who loved me like his own daughter. "You wouldn't hurt me," I whisper, hating how small my voice sounds, like a child still seeking approval from her beloved uncle. Victor's smirk widens, transforming his handsome features into something cruel and unfamiliar. "Wouldn't I?" Without warning, he pulls out his phone, fingers dancing across the screen. My heart leaps as he presses dial and a familiar number appears. Luca. "I've got Natalia," Victor says smoothly when the call connects. I try to cry out, to warn Luca, but Victor's sharp glance freezes the words in my throat. The threat in his eyes is clear. Be quiet, or else. Luca's voice comes through, tense and dangerous. "If you touch her?" "Harm her?" Victor interrupts, his tone casual, almost bored. "I'd prefer not to. She's always been my favorite niece, after all. A source of pride, unlike my useless son." His lip curls in disgust. "But this isn't about her, Luca." "Then what do you want?" Luca demands, frustration seeping through the line. I can picture him, jaw clenched, knuckles white around his phone. My heart aches for him. "I want you dead." Victor's blunt words send ice through my veins. "When I killed your parents, the syndicate should have been mine. But you?" He practically spits the word. "You swooped in and ruined everything. It's time I remind you who you're dealing with." "I know where you're taking her," Luca growls, and hope flares in my chest. He's coming for me. For us. Good. Victor's voice drops to a dangerous purr. Let's just hope you can make it past my men in one piece. He ends the call, tossing the phone casually onto the seat beside him. The gesture is so at odds with the magnitude of what he's just revealed. He killed Luca's parents, orchestrated my father's death, and now plans to use me as bait to destroy my husband. My hands shake as I cradle my stomach, desperately trying to protect the precious lives within from this nightmare. How did I not see it? All those years, all those family gatherings, was any of it real? Or was I just another pawn in Victor's grand game? The limo turns onto a dark road leading out of Moscow, trees pressing close on either side. We're heading to Zavidovo, to whatever trap Victor has planned for Luca. My beloved uncle has become the monster in this fairy tale, and I've walked right into his lair. But as fear threatens to overwhelm me, something else stirs in my chest. A fierce, protective instinct that has nothing to do with being an Orlova, and everything to do with being a mother, being Luca's wife. Victor may think he's 3 steps ahead, but he's forgotten something crucial. I'm not the same naive girl who once worshipped her uncle blindly. I'm Natalia Volkova now, and I will do whatever it takes to protect my new family, even if it means destroying what's left of my own.
Chapter 23. Luca. The sleek black SUVs pull up to Victor's private resort under cover of darkness, engines purring quietly as we kill the lights. Through the windshield, I take in the sprawling estate, all stone and glass gleaming in the moonlight, surrounded by dense forest on 3 sides, a fortress disguised as a luxury retreat. My men fan out silently at my signal, taking positions in the shadows. Years of working together have honed us into a precision instrument, each man knowing his role without need for words. But tonight feels different. The usual ice in my veins has been replaced by something hotter, more primal. Natalia is in there, my wife, the mother of my unborn children. And Victor has her. The thought sends a fresh surge of rage through me, but I force it down. Anger makes men sloppy, gets them killed, and I can't afford mistakes, not with so much at stake. Through my night vision scope, I count at least 20 of Victor's men patrolling the grounds. Heavy artillery, tactical gear, not your typical security detail. My lips curl in a grim smile. The old fox knows we're coming and he's prepared. Boss? Alexei's voice is barely a whisper beside me. Thermal imaging shows multiple heat signatures inside. Looks like they've got her in the study on the 2nd floor. I nod, processing the intel. The study has a clear view of the front approach. Victor will see us coming. But the back of the house backs up to sheer cliff face, presumably secure. Amateur mistake. Team 1 takes the front. Draw their fire, I murmur, my voice pitched low. Team 2 circles wide, comes in from the east garden. Team 3 scales the cliff face, breaches through the study windows. A beat. No survivors. My men nod, faces grim in the darkness. They understand what's at stake. Victor isn't just another rival to be eliminated. He's a cancer that needs to be cut out at the root. The first shots ring out exactly as planned. Team 1 engaging the front guards in a thunderous exchange of gunfire. Flash bangs light up the night like artificial lightning, casting strange shadows across the manicured lawn. Through my earpiece, I hear the controlled chaos of combat. Short bursts of automatic fire, the meaty thud of bodies hitting ground, the sharp crack of sniper rifles from our perimeter positions. I lead Team 3 to the cliff face, our climbing gear barely whispering against the rough stone. The sounds of battle echo strangely off the rock wall, creating the illusion of a much larger force. Good. Let Victor think we're throwing everything at the front while we slip in behind. The study windows loom above us, warm light spilling out into the night. Through the glass I catch glimpses of movement, shadows passing back and forth. My jaw clenches as I recognize Natalia's silhouette, her distinctive auburn hair glowing like fire in the lamplight. She's alive. Relief floods through me, quickly followed by fresh determination. We reach the window ledge in silence, my men taking up breach positions with practiced efficiency. I check my weapon one last time, more habit than necessity. The familiar weight of the gun is reassuring in my hands. 3. I breathe into my calm. 2. 1. The windows explode inward in a shower of glass and flashbangs. We swing in through the chaos, boots crunching on broken glass as we clear our sectors. But instead of the resistance we expected, we find only empty space. My combat instincts scream a warning seconds before I feel the cold press of a gun barrel against the back of my head. "Drop it." Victor's voice comes from behind me, dripping with smug satisfaction. "Unless you want your pregnant wife to see exactly what a hollow point does to a man's skull." I let my weapon hang loose from one finger, mind racing as I assess options. Where are my men? A quick scan of the room shows them face down on the floor, disarmed. The whole thing was a trap. "Hands where I can see them," Victor continues. "Slowly now." I comply, raising my hands in apparent surrender. But my fingers stay curled just so around my gun, balanced perfectly on my pinky. Years of training have prepared me for moments like this. "Turn around," Victor commands. "I want you to see this coming." I pivot slowly, careful to keep my movement smooth and unthreatening. Victor stands before me in an impeccably tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. Always the gentleman gangster. Behind him I catch a glimpse of Natalia, pale but unharmed, her green eyes wide with fear as they meet mine. "You know," Victor muses, his free hand straightening his tie. "I expected more from the great Luka Volkov, the man who's been a thorn in my side for so long, brought down by simple bait." His eyes flick to Natalia. "Though I must admit, my niece played her part beautifully. Always so trusting, aren't you, Detka?" It was almost too easy, I agree, letting a smirk play at the corners of my mouth. Something flickers in Victor's eyes. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. "What are you—" he starts, but the sudden buzz of his phone cuts him off. Still holding the gun steady, he pulls out his phone with his free hand. I watch with satisfaction as his face drains of color, his usual composure cracking as notification after notification floods his screen. Breaking news. Prominent businessman Viktor Orlov linked to organized crime. Federal investigation uncovers massive money laundering operation. Sources claim Orlov is notorious crime boss Kirill Baranov. "What did you do?" Victor snarls, his cultured veneer falling away to reveal the beast beneath. "I learned from the best," I say coolly. "You taught me the value of patience, of planning ahead. Did you really think I didn't have contingencies in place? That I wouldn't be ready when you finally showed your hand?" The distant wail of sirens filters through the broken windows, growing steadily closer. Victor's face twists with rage as he realizes the trap he's fallen into. His finger tightens on the trigger. "You're too late," he spits. "I may be going down, but I'm taking you with me." Time seems to slow as I watch his finger squeeze the trigger. I could drop and roll, maybe even get a shot off with my concealed weapon. But the angle is wrong. The bullet might ricochet, might hit Natalia. The gunshot cracks through the room like thunder. But the pain I expect doesn't come. Instead, I watch in shock as Victor stumbles forward, red blooming across his expensive white shirt. He turns, disbelief written across his features, to face Natalia. My wife stands with my dropped gun in her hands, her aim unwavering despite the slight tremor in her fingers. Smoke curls from the barrel as she stares down her uncle, her face a mask of determination and grief. "That's for my father," she says softly, her voice steady despite the tears tracking down her cheeks. Victor slumps to the ground, still conscious but severely wounded. Blood seeps through his fingers where he clutches his chest. His eyes find Natalia's, and something passes between them. A lifetime of love and betrayal crystallized in a single moment. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Then Natalia steps forward, the gun still pointed at her uncle's prone form. Her hands shake, but her aim doesn't waver. "You saved me," I say, in awe and full of love for my wife. "Oh, kitten, you saved me." Sometimes love means pulling a trigger. Sometimes it means watching your past burn, so your future can rise from the ashes. And sometimes, like tonight, it means holding each other up as you walk away from the carnage, knowing that whatever comes next, you'll face it together. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. We meant every word.
Chapter 24. Natalia. My hands won't stop trembling. The gun feels impossibly heavy, still warm from the shot that just changed everything. The acrid smell of gunpowder mingles with the metallic tang of blood. My uncle's blood, as Victor lies before me on the polished marble floor. I can't process what I've just done. The man who was as close to me as my father was, now bleeding out because of me. My vision blurs with tears as memories crash over me. Summer barbecues, Christmas mornings, family vacations. All tainted now by the truth of who he really is. Slowly, I cross the space between us, my heels clicking against the marble with each step. Victor's eyes find mine, and the connection that's always been there, the bond between uncle and niece, crackles with painful intensity. I resented my father for so long because of the Mafia. I whisper, my voice shaking. But all this time, it was you I should have hated. The words taste like ash in my mouth. Victor's gaze softens, a faint smile tugging at his bloodied lips. Despite everything, the betrayal, the lies, the violence, I see a flash of the uncle I loved in that smile. My heart breaks all over again. But despite everything, I still love you. The confession tears itself from my throat. It kills me to know that neither you nor my father will ever hold my twins, never get to see them grow up. His smile falters, pain and something like regret flickering across his features. But before either of us can say more, I feel Luca's presence behind me, solid and reassuring. His hands are gentle as he takes the gun from my trembling fingers. "That's enough, Natalia," he says quietly, his voice a warm rumble that helps ground me in reality. "You did what you had to, but any more will get us both arrested." The wail of approaching sirens grows louder, and suddenly the room is flooded with tactical units, their weapons trained on Victor as they secure the scene. I watch, oddly detached, as they handcuff my uncle, the man who was once the center of our family, now rendered helpless on his own marble floor. The next few hours pass in a blur of questioning and statements. I repeat my story over and over. How Victor lured me here. How Luca came to rescue me. How I grabbed the gun in self-defense when Victor was about to shoot my husband. The truth mostly, just carefully edited to protect Luca's involvement. Finally, we're cleared to leave. The drive home is silent, the city lights streaking past like shooting stars as Luca navigates the empty streets. My mind keeps replaying the moment I pulled the trigger, the look in Victor's eyes as he realized his own niece had shot him. When we arrive at our house, I turn to Luca, the question that's been burning in my mind finally spilling out. "Why didn't they arrest you?" A faint smile plays at his lips. "I had my men pull out before the police arrived. As far as the authorities are concerned, I'm just an investor who risked his life to save his wife." Relief floods through me, and I throw my arms around him, breathing in his familiar scent. Sandalwood and gunpowder and something uniquely him. His warmth seeps into me, chasing away the chill that's been lingering in my bones since I pulled that trigger. "And how did you leak all that information about Victor?" I ask, my voice barely above a whisper against his chest. Luca's chuckle rumbles through me as he holds me closer. "It was your mother's doing. After I explained everything, she opened the safe, found the proof, and leaked it to the press. She was shocked, but knew what needed to be done." My heart swells with a mix of relief and gratitude. Even after everything, my mother came through when it mattered most. I'm glad she was willing to help. Luca's arms tighten around me possessively. Our children are safe, and that's all that matters now. Victor is gone, and with him, any reason for me to stay in the Mafia. I'm done, Natalia. The weight of his words, the promise of a future free from fear and violence, overwhelms me. Tears spring to my eyes again, but this time from joy rather than sorrow. "Really?" I whisper, hardly daring to believe it. Instead of answering, Luca captures my lips in a searing kiss. All the fear and adrenaline of the night transmutes into something else. Something heated and desperate and alive. I melt into him, my body recognizing its mate even as my mind still reels from everything that's happened.
The following scene is too spicy to be included in this version. You can find the unedited version on bellakingbooks.com or by following the link in the video description. Your book will now continue. Chapter 25. Luca. The soft glow of candlelight dances across crystal glasses and fine china as I watch Natalia's family gather in our dining room. The scene before me feels almost surreal. Elena arranging flowers in an antique vase, Alina helping Natalia set the table, their laughter echoing through the space like music. After everything we've been through, this simple moment of domestic peace feels like a miracle. My wife moves with natural grace between her mother and sister, her dress highlighting the subtle curve of her stomach where our twins grow. She's radiant tonight, happiness lighting her from within. Every so often, her eyes find mine across the room, and the love I see there still takes my breath away. The table looks beautiful, girls, Elena says, adjusting a place setting with practiced precision. Her silver blonde hair catches the light as she works, reminding me of the society photographs I'd seen of her in her prime. She carries herself with the same elegant poise, but there's a warmth to her now that was absent in those glossy magazine shots. After a few minutes, Elena drifts over to where I stand near the window. Her blue eyes, so like Natalia's, study me with an intensity that reminds me of her late husband. "Thank you, Luca," she says softly, her voice thick with emotion. "For saving Natalia, for protecting all of us." She pauses, blinking back tears. "I don't know what we would have done if—" The words trail off, but I understand what she can't say. If Victor had succeeded. If we'd lost Natalia. If our family had been destroyed before it truly began. I shake my head gently, keeping my expression calm despite the surge of protective instinct her words trigger. "Igor was a good man," I tell her, meaning every word. "He would have done the same for you all." I glance toward Natalia, watching as she arranges silverware with meticulous care. "That's why we're naming our son after him." Elena's sharp intake of breath draws my attention back to her. Tears fill her eyes as the weight of my words sinks in. For a long moment, she simply stares at me, one hand pressed to her heart. Then, with a small nod of approval, she steps forward and pulls me into an embrace. The gesture catches me off guard. I can't remember the last time someone other than Natalia hugged me. But Elena's gratitude is sincere. Her acceptance of me as part of her family clear in this simple act. Awkwardly, I return the embrace, patting her back gently. When we return to the dining room, Natalia and Alina are just finishing with the place settings. Their heads are bent together as they work, auburn and chestnut hair mingling as they share some private joke. The sight makes something warm unfurl in my chest. My wife reconnecting with her sister, healing the rifts that Victor's machinations created. "They're naming him Igor," Elena announces, her voice still thick with emotion. Alina's head snaps up, her eyes widening with delight. "Really?" She looks between Natalia and me, practically bouncing with excitement. "That's perfect. But what about your daughter? What will you name her?" Natalia's eyes meet mine across the table, a soft smile playing at her lips. "Nadezhda," Natalia says, her hand drifting to her stomach. "It means hope in Russian." "Hope," Alina repeats softly, testing the name. "It's beautiful." As we take our seats for dinner, the conversation flows naturally toward the future. Natalia shares her vision for a new clothing line, her face animated as she describes sustainable, affordable baby clothes that will be accessible to families across Russia. The market is saturated with either cheap, disposable items or ridiculously expensive designer pieces, she explains, her passion for the project evident in every word. "I want to create something in between, beautiful, well-made clothes that regular families can afford. An ode to the old world, To Russia, before the world became so complex. It's brilliant, Alina chimes in, especially with the focus on sustainability. That's becoming huge in the fashion world. I watch Natalia's eyes light up as she outlines her plans, and I can't help but smile. This is the woman I fell in love with. Brilliant, driven, always thinking of ways to make the world better. Luca has agreed to be my primary investor, she adds, flashing me a grateful smile. Now that he's retired, he's looking for legitimate business ventures to support. Elena's eyebrows rise slightly at the word retired, but she says nothing. We all know what I'm retiring from, but some things are better left unspoken, especially on a night like tonight, when we can all celebrate and come together. As the evening progresses, I find myself increasingly aware of how right this feels. The way Elena fusses over the temperature of the borscht, insisting it needs more dill. The way Alina teases Natalia about her pregnancy cravings. The easy flow of conversation, punctuated by bursts of laughter and shared memories. For the first time since my parents were murdered, I feel part of a real family. Not the cold, calculated alliances of the Mafia world, but something warm and genuine. Something worth protecting at all costs. Looking around the table, I see the future I want for our children. Igor and Nadezhda will grow up surrounded by love, untouched by the violence that shaped my life. They'll have Sunday dinners with their grandmother and aunt, birthday celebrations filled with laughter instead of tension, holidays unmarred by the shadow of criminal enterprises. You're awfully quiet, Natalia murmurs, her hand finding mine under the table. Everything okay? I squeeze her fingers gently, bringing them to my lips for a quick kiss. Everything's perfect, my love. And it is. Or at least as perfect as our complicated lives can be. There will always be challenges. My past isn't something that can be erased with a simple retirement announcement. But looking at my wife, at her family that's become mine, I know we can handle whatever comes next. Because this right here is worth fighting for. Worth dying for, if necessary. But more importantly, worth living for. The sound of Alina's laughter draws my attention back to the conversation. She's telling a story about Natalia's first fashion show, complete with dramatic hand gestures that have everyone in stitches. My wife's cheeks are flushed with embarrassment, but she's laughing too, her whole face lit up with joy. This is what family should be, I realize. Not power plays and betrayal, not violence wrapped in loyalty's clothing. Just love, pure and simple. Complicated sometimes, messy often, but real. As I watch Elena pull Natalia into a tight embrace, whispering something that makes my wife's eyes fill with happy tears, I make a silent vow. Our children will never know the life I lived. They'll grow up in the light of days like this, surrounded by laughter, secure in the knowledge that they are loved. And anyone who tries to threaten that peace will learn exactly why I was the most feared man in Moscow. Because while I may be retired, some instincts never fade. But for now I push those darker thoughts aside and focus on the warmth of the moment. On Natalia's smile, on Elena's acceptance, on Alina's infectious laughter, on the future we're building. One family dinner at a time. This is home. This is family. This is everything I never knew I needed until Natalia crashed into my life and turned my world upside down, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Epilogue. Natalia. 2 years can change everything and nothing at all. The glittering ballroom of Moscow's most exclusive hotel buzzes with energy as I glide through the crowd, accepting congratulations and fielding questions about my new baby collection. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over the sea of fashion industry elites who've come to celebrate the successful runway show. The air is thick with expensive perfume, champagne, and possibility. My own dress, a silk creation in deep burgundy, swishes around my legs as I move. I designed it myself, of course, part of my new Mother and Me line that's already generating buzz. The critics are calling it revolutionary. Sustainable, affordable luxury that doesn't compromise on style. Mrs. Volkova. Marina, our nanny, approaches with Igor and Nadezhda in tow. My heart melts at the sight of my babies, now active toddlers who've inherited the best of both Luca and me. Igor with his father's intense blue eyes and my auburn curls. Nadezhda with her dark hair and my green eyes. They're dressed in pieces from my collection. Clothes designed with both style and practicality in mind. Mama, Nadezhda squeals, making grabby hands at me. I scoop her up, pressing kisses to both their faces as Igor hugs my legs. Have they been good? I ask Marina, though I already know the answer. Despite their spirited personalities, our twins are surprisingly well-behaved. Angels, as always, Marina assures me, but it's past their bedtime. I give them each one more kiss, breathing in their sweet baby smell. Good night, my darlings. Mama and Papa will come check on you later. As Marina leads them away, I catch Luca watching us from his position at the bar. Even after 2 years, the sight of him still makes my heart skip. He cuts an imposing figure in his black suit, the fabric emphasizing his broad shoulders and muscular build. The dangerous edge that made him Moscow's most feared man still lingers in his bearing, though these days he channels that intensity into legitimate business ventures. I'm about to join him when I hear it. Whispered words that slice through the pleasant hum of conversation. Her uncle was Kirill, you know? She has some nerve trying to make her brand a household name with those Mafia ties. She should be ashamed. The speakers are 2 women I vaguely recognize from the fashion circuit, huddled near the bar with their heads bent together like conspiring schoolgirls. My smile never falters as I approach them, chin held high. Ladies, I interrupt smoothly, taking satisfaction in the way they startle. I couldn't help but overhear your concerns. I meet their wide-eyed stares with unwavering confidence. Let me be clear. My uncle has nothing to do with me. My father, the incredible man he was, spent his life protecting us from Victor. And thanks to his efforts, Victor's organization is gone. The words hang in the air like crystal, sharp, clear, and impossible to ignore. The women flush with embarrassment, mumbling apologies before scurrying away. A deep chuckle draws my attention to Luca, who's watching the scene with obvious amusement. After all these years, he teases as I join him at the bar, you're still a firecracker.